also. So wanted to let you know that she is here, but just not physically here. So we do have one comment from the public. Lisa Conley from Local 212 is here. And so if you would like to come up.
Which chair to take? All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Olson, members of the MATC board, Dr. Martin, and others here today or viewing remotely. For those of you who don't know, I'm Dr. Lisa Conley. I'm a full-time STEM faculty member, and I'm president of AFT Local 212, the union representing MATC's full and part-time faculty, paraprofessionals, and the Milwaukee PBS engineers and production staff. On behalf of Local 212, I bring greetings to the board and thank each of you for your service to MATC. To Director Mendieta Ramos, congratulations on your July appointment for another term. To Directors Burris and Moore Umakunde, congratulations on your appointment and welcome or welcome back to the MATC family. Dr. Martin and members of the administration, we look forward to working with you in a collaborative fashion, one where the voices of frontline professionals are at the table early and often in the coming year. This will best ensure that MATC can deliver the high quality educational experience that our students need and deserve, and upon which the communities from which they come depend. As we embark on a new school year, one where we continue our journey together into the realities of what should I call it, pandemic to endemic transition, I want to introduce to you the members of the Local 212 leadership team for the coming year. And I know a couple of them are here behind me, so if they could stand or wave as they feel comfortable, much appreciated. Executive Vice President Beverly Johnson was unable to attend today, but she sends her best regards. Vice President and Deputy Vice President of part-time faculty, Lou Sosa and Hughes Crash Crawford. Vice President and Deputy Vice President of Paraprofessionals, Lynette Harvey, who is here today, and Peter Cotto. Vice President, and we have a Deputy Vice President of MPBS Engineers and Production Staff, Jason Pinkowski, and Jeff Moorbeck, who is here this afternoon. As well as Vice President of Shared Governance, Dwayne Schlund, and Vice President of Committees and Engagement, Karen Moore. So there's not going to be a quiz after, even though it's what I do for a living, but we will be emailing you out the names or positions and their email addresses at Local 212. From compensation to climate, staffing to student supports, faculty roles to FTEs, MPBS functions to matrix structures, shared governance to systems review, and of course, equity. There is much work to be done in the coming year. I invite and encourage members of the board to reach out to our talented leadership team if you need assistance or have questions in the coming year. Why? Well, if you seek an unfiltered read on climate amongst MATC's frontline employees, an honest assessment of what is and not working at the college through the eyes of those doing the work every day in the classrooms, labs, shops, and offices, or if you simply want to tap into the wealth of intellectual capital and professional expertise that our members, that all whom we represent, possess, you're guaranteed we will deliver. En route, we hope that you will come to believe, as many do here today, that Local 212's resources are an asset and that MATC's frontline employees are the solution. And with that, and until what I'm sure will be a next time, I will take my leave, and I thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Conley, and welcome back to a new school year to all of Local 212. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes from our regular board meeting on August 23rd, 2022. May I please have a motion?
I move approval.
Is there a second? Okay, so a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mays to approve the minutes of our regular board meeting on August 23rd, 2022. Any discussion or corrections to the minutes?
didn't know where to look for years. Like I know, like
Hearing or seeing none, I will take a vote on our approval of the minutes. All those in favor of approving the minutes from August 23rd, 2022, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item is our consent agenda items, and this is for the bills of August 2022, the financial report of August 2022, the human resources report, and the procurement report. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Director Baker. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Diaz. Any questions or comments on any of the consent agenda items? Director Baker.
Yeah, I have two, I think they're comments.
Okay.
One might be a question, depending if somebody can answer it. So on the human resources report, although later in our agenda, the annual affirmative action report does show a good overall balance, I believe, in the institution, which I was happy to see. I'm still not seeing an improvement in our hiring and diversity. And I know we have had the conversation, and I think we've heard about some of the plans, and I understand that we are in progress. So there's a comment, not a question, and I'm going to look at it every month, and I'm going to say this every month until we see improvement. The second thing, though, that I really I took a look in the procurement report, and so there's an item that I drilled down into a little bit that I took a look at called the gap year, and I saw it also in the report from the foundation, which looks like a cool thing that we're doing that helps to bring students who may have not thought about attending college. It sort of introduces them to college and careers and whatever. We've been doing this, I think, for a few years now. No, there's a first year?
We've had the first cohort.
Okay. So my point is, we spend $250,000. We got about a 48% return on that. Like 48% of the students came to MATC, which that's a good thing. You know, I'm excited that happened. And I believe a number of other students entered into apprenticeships or careers or something like that directly. But I would like to know, and this doesn't have to be now, but I would like to know what our plan is to institutionalize this, rather than continuing to put out $250,000 a year with about a 50% return on investment. I'm wondering, is this something that our career coaches and other staff within the college can be trained up to do and participate in? So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, but that can be at a later time.
Okay.
Thanks. Those
Yeah.
are my only comments.
Anybody else with questions or comments on any of the consent agenda items? Okay, seeing none, I will take a voice vote here. So we have a motion by Director Baker and a second by Director Diaz to approve the consent agenda items. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we will move on to our board action items around our resolution. So there we have resolution F0243-09-22, authorizing the sale of, this is $1.5 million general obligation promissory note series 2022-2023D, Milwaukee Area Technical College District, Wisconsin. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
Thank you. And I do know that we have Mr. Newman here to go through that with us.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I placed before you a brief handout, which I'll walk through. As a reminder, the board at the last meeting adopted the initial resolution, which authorized us to proceed to market. We did talk to Moody's Investors Service, confirmed the AA1 rating, prepared the offering statement, which was then circulated to the marketplace, and invited bids this morning at 9:30. To walk through the handout, on the first page you see, we did get 4 bidders, which is great. We usually get 3 to 4 bidders. That's our wheelhouse on these. The little difference I'd say is that these 4 bidders didn't bid on the Series C issue. Why? Is because they didn't have the appetite, didn't have the powder put behind it, whatever reason. Because the Series C issue, that was our biggest issue, the $22 million issue. So always it would get different players. But Huntington Securities has bid in the past, and they're the winner at a true interest cost of 3.52%. Now, the bad news is when you compare it to past issues, I've been a hero. Not so much today. That 3.52 for our Series C, which was a big one, that was at a 2.3, and our last $1.5 million issue, which is Series B, was 2.1. So rates have gone up. You can see in the month of September alone, the muni market data, which is an index we look at, it's gone up from September 1st to now 60 basis points just in that month. But we had 4 bidders and we had 4 competitive bidders. We will continue to look at the bid specifications to see if there's anything different we should do. I don't think there's going to be much. You know, this is really what we'll be seeing going forward. As far as the issue itself, it's the dated October 12th. That's when the funds are transferred to college, and you'll have use of them. The interest clock will start. The maturities are like all the other ones, June 1, beginning 24 through 27. Our amortization is very sharp on maturities. The first interest payment is June 1 of 2023. You will have funds as part of the levy you set later this fall, but also part of the bid package, a premium is paid, and those are in excess of the interest amount you need for 2023. So we're set there. That said, the AA1 is confirmed. The back of the handout is a copy of the report. Literally no change in language. Part of that is, once again, there's nothing to report. You know, when your audit comes out in the next few months, that'll be a different discussion. On the next page, I have the overall financing plan itself. I was going to apologize, it's real small type, but we follow through the process. This is the first time in, boy, long as 3 years, that the average interest rate is higher than any of the ones that we've been projecting going forward. And that's because some of the bidders actually put a 6% rate on some of the maturities. Why? The expectation is that rates are going to continue to go up and they're covering their ability to go into the secondary market should they need to. That's part of the thought process. Okay. Overall, once again, you'll have funds in the levy you put in place in 2023, but you also have cash from the premium bid. Continuing through the cycle, we'll continue to watch the sales, continue to talk about the bid specifications, report back to the board. And once again, at the very back of the handout, we have the Moody's credit report with no change in language. What I've just covered has been put into the resolutions which have been prepared by your bond counsel, and I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much, always comprehensive. Do you anticipate they'll relook at things after October when we see our tax levy, or not until the audit's in?
No, and I think, and not to steal anything of Jeff's splendor, but I think your valuations have come in very well,
Right.
but everybody's has.
Okay.
So all boats float. I think the bigger things always goes to the audit, how that performs.
Thank you.
You're shaking your head. I don't know what else to tell you.
No question.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, we do have motion by Director Foley and second by Director Mays for resolution F0243-0922 that authorizes the sale of $1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, which is series 2022-2023D of the Milwaukee Area Technical College. We will need to have a roll call vote. What?
Director Doris,
Yes.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Diaz,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos,
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Moore Omakunde, Director Baker,
Aye.
and Director Olson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. In your hand. And next allows us to go out to market for Series E, which is resolution F0244-09-22, authorizing the issuance of $1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, series 2022-2023E at the Milwaukee Area Technical College District. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the resolution.
Second. Thank you. Any questions about this one? Okay, seeing none, we do have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mays for resolution F0244-09-22, which authorizes the issuance of $1.5 million for general obligation promissory notes series 2022-2023 E of the Milwaukee Area Technical College District. Glenn, can we please have a roll call vote?
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Diaz.
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Mays.
Aye.
Director Moore Umakunde. Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Olson.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on to item C. So we like seeing you, Mr. Meehan, for the most part. We'll see what next month brings on those rates, okay.
Thank
Item C is resolution S0245-09-22 to approve the building trade rate changes. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Thank you. And L, you have that happen.
Good evening again, Chair Olson.
Yeah.
and members of the board. So this is an annual board action item based on policy C0901, where the college is required to increase the salaries of our building trades positions based on the adjustments that are regulated by the Milwaukee Trades Commission. So we request approval to adjust those salaries.
Any comments or questions? This is an annual item, so those of us who have been on the board know that this is something that we see annually. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions or comments. So this will be a voice vote. We do have a motion by Director Baker and a second by Director Case for resolution F0245-09-22 to approve the building trade rate changes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is item D, the approval of the presidential evaluation instrument. And Dr. Martin, as I said before, is online. So what you see tonight, I wanted to share with you a little bit, and the board has had, since I've been on the board and has had a lot of different discussions. I think that the board as a whole felt better about last year's tool that we used. It allowed a lot more direction and metrics. We've been talking over the last several months about a dashboard and the data that we receive specific. So when Dr. Martin and I met last week around this tool and some drafts around that, there's a part A, if you remember, which is some more general leadership traits. And then there's the part B that is very specific with college goals and metrics and those pieces. Tonight, we are only looking at part B, and I'm going to share a little bit of the conversation. So part B is around the college goals and the metrics. There's a little bit more details in part B based on the board comment over both last January and then in May. So we tried to be responsive to those board comments as we continue to have that, if you see in part B. And then you also received a dashboard, if you will, from Dr. Mannion and team as far as what they put together to give us some visuals, because that is a lot of text. If you read through part B, sometimes to look at metrics in text is not very easy to follow. So we tried to put together graphs and charts that will allow us some context when looking at that. So the dashboard attachment that you received for tonight is in conjunction with part B of this tool. And so we are looking only at part B. Normally we approve parts A and B together because it is a comprehensive evaluation tool. We mostly spend our time in the mid-year evaluation with the president around part B and really focus on part A in May. So we'll talk about that. I'm gonna back up to part A. So as Dr. Martin and I were going through that and really realized, and I think as the board did, that some of those comments that were in part A were very vague and really were not as comprehensive around the work of a college president. As there were some that were very specific and very detailed, and then some that missed the whole, and I think we've been talking around, if you will, that HR element about the people part of it. And that is a key piece when we're a people organization that wasn't really specific. And it doesn't mean she wasn't doing it, but the tool did not lend itself to provide that level of feedback. So we talked after a while and realized that it needed a very massive overhaul, more than we were going to be able to do in that amount of time. And really, Mike, she had shared a draft with me in advance, and really the question that I had is that if there were any either statutory or other requirements around that Part A that either from the Higher Learning Commission or anything that we were governed by. And she said, no, it's just been one of those historical things that has evolved and tweaked, but really needs probably some significant overview. So we talked quite a bit about, there are usually some professional standards for college presidents and that around leadership specifically. So strategic leadership, human resources leadership, instructional leadership, all of those key areas. And that would be a better way to frame it rather than just some statements that don't seem to have a link to it. And then it would allow for us to say that that's specifically there and give levels of feedback, because I think some of us were struggling about, I have questions or I have this feedback, and there doesn't seem to be anything on the tool that allows that. So we will be bringing back Part A in the next month or two as that looks at a major overhaul. But it was important that Part B come forward at this time, because that is around the college's goals, which are underway since classes are underway and very much aligned to the metrics. Part A is more the holistic review about leadership collectively, and is a little less time sensitive. And so that's why you're only seeing B tonight to take approval, if that makes sense. So I wanted to give you an overview of the conversation that we had and the work that will still happen with Part 8 that will come back to the board for approval, because we do have to approve part of those. So Dr. Martin, feel free to jump in on anything that I missed in our conversation and next steps on that, but otherwise I would open it up to the board for conversations or questions.
Okay, Chair Olson, I think the only thing I would add is that what you're looking at is based on the feedback that you gave, especially under strategic priority 2 under organizational excellence, to really be more specific in terms of the qualitative and quantitative measures that we would use. So that's why you're seeing that additional piece there that you hadn't seen the last time under improved decision-making processes. So that's objective 1. And then objective 2, as we talked, incorporate the growth mindset. And we did talk about project plan and milestones. That Aleutian phase 1 implementation, when we start looking at the strategic plan and their plan together, you will see the milestones more specifically. It's a multi-year plan, and this will be year 1 of that.
Questions or comments on Part B or the goals that were in there? I mean, the metrics, which I think we found was very helpful, and then having a little visual representation of some of that. Yes,
I'm just wondering if I could see an example of each of these performance monitoring instruments. So I have no idea what's in a PLUS survey, or I'm sorry, a pulse survey.
Yeah.
I don't know what PACE questions are. Is there some way we could see what those are?
like examples of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, sure. Dr. Martin, is that possible to just show samples of what those documents or what those tools are that are being used?
Yeah, we've done pulse surveys before, so we can certainly share some examples of past ones that we've done. And we'll be developing the current ones for the current PACE survey that we completed. What we're trying to do is, before we get to the next 2-year PACE survey, which is the environmental climate of our employees, what we want to do is see how we're doing, take a pulse, so to speak. And so we'll have a series of questions that we'll be asking, and we'll give it an example of some of that to you. We'll make sure that you get those.
Dr. Pulley, is that?
Yeah, that should do.
Okay,
Thanks.
good. Yep. And I just realized I didn't actually ask for anybody to make the motion or second. We just jumped into discussion, so that's what I get for being in this bubble over here tonight. So could I actually have a motion to for item D to approval of the presidential evaluation instrument? Which we did before we continue.
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Dr. Diaz. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Dr. May. Is there continued discussion? So as a reminder that this part of it becomes in the mid-year evaluation, and so we'll have some metrics and some pieces there, and we'll have, Dr. Mark will share some examples of the pulse surveys that are mentioned in there, and then we will bring back part A to the board to approve that part of it. So seeing or hearing no additional comments, we did have a motion by Director Diaz and a second by Director Mays to approve the presidential evaluation instrument Part B. I want to be clear on that it is just Part B, not the complete one. So, and this is a voice vote. So all those in favor of approving Part B of the presidential evaluation instrument, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We are ready to move on to the report section of our agenda then. We're done with our action pieces. So I have a few items that I'd like to share tonight. So I would like to thank Directors Foley, Baker, and Mendoza Ramos for volunteering to sit on our, I gotta make sure I say this, because it's not all board policies. If I say it the wrong way, you think that all three of you will be really reviewing all of our policies. So it's policies that govern board members, right? Not all board policies here. To review in this task force. And so they will be working with Chris Staccato, who is our MATC interim legal counsel, on looking at that and bringing those forward to us in batches. And I've asked Chair Foley, since that is his real job, and he also serves on the District Boards Association and has done some bylaws. You know, some people like doing that type of thing. So we are very grateful for that, to serve on that. And then we will be getting those in batches as they come through. And so we will have an overview of all of the policies that govern board members in all of that. So if anybody else did not get that in and just have this burning desire to join that group, please let me know. Just a reminder that on October 6th through the 8th, the Wisconsin Technical College District Boards Association will be holding its fall meeting in person, hosted by Chippewa Valley Technical College. In Eau Claire at the Holiday Inn, and it will focus on the rules of parliamentary procedure and rules of order. So if you'd like to attend, let Gwen know. I know that Mark is attending that. So thank you for that.
May I just make a comment about that?
You can.
The greatest danger about parliamentary procedure is that no one in the room knows what it is, because it can invalidate what we think we are doing. And it can lead to conflict that shouldn't have to arise. So I'd encourage all of you, unless you have a strong background in parliamentary procedure already, as at least one of us does, I'd really encourage you to attend and learn what you can about it. You do not want to start out by reading Robert's Rules of Order on your own.
Or even in a group.
Not a book club book. Huh?
No.
Okay, thank you for that. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Layla Merrifield, who is here in person, the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Technical College District Boards Association. Welcome, Layla.
Thank you. Thanks for the pitch. Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see many of you again. It's been a while, Director Baker, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Layla Merrifield. I've been with the District Boards Association for about 7 years, a little over 7 years now. And I came by way of being legislative staff in the Legislative Fiscal Bureau. So that's my background, and I sort of help lead the advocacy efforts of the 16 colleges collectively in the Capitol, as well as leading these boards association meetings that have painful topics like parliamentary procedure, but painful but necessary topics such as those. And we really try to provide as much trustee education and development as we possibly can. I know some of you have attended our meetings. I will also say that there's always a Zoom option, and meetings are recorded now, and they are on our website for those of you who aren't able to join us in person, but we certainly appreciate those who are able to join us. I'll just say Eau Claire will be a fine meeting. I think it's going to be great. Our expert is flying in from Michigan and has a lot of experience specifically with community college boards. I'll also say that on January 12th is kind of the next date on your calendar. I'd like you to mark. That's going to be our legislative seminar when we ask trustees to come to the Capitol, if you're able, and meet with your legislators in person in Madison. We'll have some education pieces ahead of those meetings. And I would just say, if you're not able to join us in person in Madison on January 12th, then please do plan to contact your legislators. Or, I know some of us are legislators, but for the rest of you, please plan to contact those folks or those offices and have a conversation about how important an investment from the state would be for a place like Milwaukee Area Technical College. To that end, I'm just going to pass around a one-pager. I'm not going to read this aloud, but this does give you kind of an overview of what we're requesting as a system. Of course, I know that Milwaukee might have particular needs, but in terms of our system-wide request on behalf of all 16 colleges, we're requesting roughly $90 million over the 2-year state budget. That's gonna mean a substantial investment for each of our colleges in terms of their general aids, and then we have some grants funding that we're also requesting. I do want to mention that we, for the first time in many years, are requesting an investment in our state office. So the state agency in Madison is quite small. They have around 55 employees. 3 of those positions are currently vacant because they simply lack the funding to fill them. And those folks work pretty closely with your college leadership on things like course and curriculum approval, grants, federal compliance, as well as reporting out our outcomes, which have been so important, particularly in the last couple of budgets when we have seen some state investment. I think that's been centered around really changing some minds amongst legislative leadership and helping them understand what your colleges do today, and helping them understand that investment in technical colleges is really an investment in Wisconsin's future. So we certainly hope to carry that message to the Capitol in January and then throughout the budget process. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has about that material. Other than that, I'd really like to thank Dr. Martin for her leadership. Dr. Martin currently chairs the President's Association of the system, and her leadership is really critical at this particular moment. So I'm very grateful to her for taking that on. I know she has plenty to do here at the college, and so taking on an additional leadership role was probably not top of her list. But as you all know, there are very few presidents actually at this point that have as much experience within this system as Dr. Martin does. And so, we had 5 brand new presidents last year. We're going to have a couple more come online this year. So it's just incredibly important to have that sort of voice and benefit of experience with the system and with really collaborating amongst the colleges. I think that's it's a critical piece and a critical time for us as a system to really decide that we're going to continue to advocate and to work together the way that we have. I think it's been productive for us. I also want to thank Mark for very similar reasons. As you mentioned, he's been working on our bylaws, which is a bit of a thankless task, but again a necessary one, and we certainly appreciate his expertise and his work on that. Finally, I have one more piece of paper to share with you guys. I don't want you to lose this. You can hand it right back to me. This is an engagement survey for all of our members. We're hoping to get as many responses as we can. We just want to find out what's working for you and what could be or what might be better in terms of serving our members today, not post COVID, but as you referenced earlier, endemic COVID. A lot of things have have changed. We've gotten used to engaging in different ways. We've certainly made investments on our end to serve members virtually, and again through Zoom, via video, via newsletters and constant contact, things like that. So just to get an idea of how you're engaging with the Boards Association today, and what sounds good in terms of going forward. And if you want to just make a note, if you don't see anything that represents your views on that particular sheet, just make a note, and I'll be happy to take that back. We're compiling these from all of our colleges as I sort of make my rounds. And for those on Zoom not able to join us here in person, I'm happy to email the survey if that would work.
So two things. One, compliments on the virtual option. I've attended 2 of the district board meetings
Fantastic.
that way. And
Fantastic.
I will say an awards ceremony falls a little flat virtually, but to attend the workshops or something like that, it's actually, it's well done. It's well done.
Good.
And then on the agenda, it's probably not fair to ask you this question
No,
before
no.
November 8th, but are you optimistic?
Oh, am I optimistic? I'm always optimistic.
Are you realistically optimistic?
I would be shocked if we didn't see some form of investment. I think we have good relationships in the legislature. We do have quite a lot of turnover this time.
Yes.
Roughly a third of the legislature is going to turn over, so that's going to be a challenge. But we hope to educate those new folks, and I'm always pleasantly surprised when new legislators come in. Just about everybody in this state has some sort of connection to a technical college. If they themselves didn't attend a technical college, then their aunt or their uncle or mom got her nursing degree there. We can often find some sort of connection. And what I have asked of the colleges is, to whatever extent is possible, is to invite their legislators onto campus. I think meeting with our students is really the most powerful advocacy work that we can do. And I think we have a great reputation, thanks to all those visits and all that engagement. We have a great reputation in the Capitol. I also personally, I don't think it hurts that there's a $5 billion surplus in the state at the moment. And I certainly hope and believe that we can make a case that, again, an investment in technical colleges is an investment in everybody's future. We saw during the pandemic just how critical, how essential our students are, our graduates are to the state's workforce. And we are at a particularly critical time in terms of where our workforce shortages are and where they're trending. I think, through at least 2030, we have some pretty serious problems. And I think we can articulate a case for why investing in us is going to put more folks into family sustaining jobs that our employers are hoping to fill. So yeah, cautiously optimistic. Well, thanks very much for humoring me with the survey. Thanks. Any other questions, comments from you? Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for the time.
You bet. Thank you for the work that you do. Next, Dr. Martin will present her president's report.
Well, thank you, Chair Olson, to board members, faculty, staff, students, community members. I'd like to give you some updates, but before I do that, I'd like to thank Layla as well. She's been a wonderful and trusted resource to our President's Association, as well as to all of our colleges, and to me personally. So I really appreciate her advocacy and all of her legislative acumen and efforts that she has really helped our colleges to do so much better. And our tech college system has been stronger because of her experience and knowledge. And we're all in a better position because of what she brings to the table. And She also coordinates with Rami, which is really helpful for us and I think strengthens our position as well. So thanks, Layla, for everything that you do for us. The second thing I'd really like to note is that our Chief DEI Officer, Eva Martina Paulus, congratulations are in order. She successfully defended her dissertation at Marquette University on Thursday, September 15th. So she is now officially Dr. Eva Martinez Paulus. Congratulations. And somehow she did this all while learning a new job at MATC, getting a DEI plan off the ground, starting affinity groups and so much more. So it's really amazing. We hear many stories of transformation about our Promise students, and so I'd like to share one with you. Chris Johnson, a web and digital media design student, is going to spend the next 20 months working as a digital marketing apprentice with Google at their offices in Chicago. The son of Vietnamese immigrants, Johnson was born and raised in Milwaukee and graduated from Milwaukee Public Schools Ronald Reagan High School. And during his senior year, he participated in our M-Cubed College Connections, which is our dual enrollment program, attending classes at both MATC and UW-Milwaukee. He started at MATC in September of 2020 through our MATC Promise program. We wish him the best of luck with his apprenticeship. Another event was the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC, partnered with the Milwaukee Brewers Mexican Fiesta and MATC to present to 42 MATC students scholarships. And this collaboration is part of our larger HSI efforts. Thanks to doctors Eva Martinez Paulus and Nadine Gonzalez de Jesus for participating in the recognition event during Mexican Fiesta weekend. Last Friday evening, I had the honor of serving as co-chair of the Hispanic Professionals of Greater Milwaukee, their annual gala. Money raised supported scholarships for high school graduates and college students who attend local higher education institutions during MATC. Directors Mendieta Ramos and Director Diaz and their spouses attended the event along with me, and I don't know if they want to make any comments about the event.
Oh, well, I can say is that it was a great event. It's always good to hear the stories about the Latinos and what they have to say, their stories, and express them to the rest of the people so we can know what the struggles that we go through and what we need to move forward as a society, and the importance of the education and the participation for the whole society to really encourage our communities to move forward. So it was great to be there, pleasure to be with all of you, and it was a great event. And thank you for the invite, and thank you for the attendance.
I could just say something quick. I definitely want to thank Dr. Martin for her efforts, for all of the work that she put behind to make sure that the gala was a success, and the amount of money that was raised that will make a direct impact on the Hispanic community for those scholarships that are being awarded. So it was a great evening. It was great to see people out again. And again, I was very happy to see the success of the event. So once again, thank you, Dr. Martin, for your efforts.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome, and thank you for being there. And we were fortunate to have Chris Abley join us at our table. Earlier today, we welcomed some folks from our PepsiCo Foundation. Stefan Bainow, PepsiCo Senior Unit General Manager, and Armando Sela, Director of Governmental Affairs, to our campus. And MATC is the only community technical college in Wisconsin to be awarded the PepsiCo Foundation Uplift Scholarship. The $500,000 total investment covers 80 scholarships per year for 2 years, so that's a total of 160 at $2,000 each per student. Each semester, 40 Black and Hispanic, Latina students will receive that $2,000 award. There's also a $50,000 emergency fund for students who see an advisor. I want to thank Laura Bray for attending and presenting, as well as Dr. Eva Martinez Paulus. Goal of this program is to address minority underrepresentation in high demand fields such as business, IT, transportation, logistics, and some other programs. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Yeah. Is the dashboard in anybody's report? The dashboard that we
Well,
were.
we had talked about it under the president's evaluation tool.
Just-
That's where it was. Yeah,
just in
did you?
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We just, thanks.
Yes, yes. Go ahead.
It was good to see. I think maybe we all just need like a little, maybe when the email comes out, just to draw people's attention to it, board members' attention, so everybody knows it's there.
Yeah, good. Thank you. And I will call on Dr. Eva Martina Paulus next as for our diversity, equity, inclusion report. And we also underneath that, we'll have our annual affirmative action report. So
Yes, thank you. Good evening. And I'm still getting used to being called doctor. So I feel very humbled to be able to have accomplished that milestone. So thank you so much. I have two updates for today. First, I would like to introduce our new executive director of community engagement, community education, Hispanic serving institution initiatives and strategic engagement at MATC, Dr. Patricia Torres Najera. If you can please join me. Dr. Patricia Torres Najera is an instrumental and critical asset to MATC for several reasons. Not only is Dr. Torres Najera going to help us continue with our HSI efforts, but also will be helping us work collaboratively within the Office of DEI and also the Student Success Division to be able to get our HSI efforts to the next level. So with that said, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Torres Najera for some introduction.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Olson and members of the board and President Vicki Martin. I'm really thrilled to be part of the MATC team. I think most of you might know, I'm not new to higher education. I have a 24-year career at UW Milwaukee, so I plan to bring all of that experience and as far as related to the work that I will be doing at MATC. And so for the past 6 years, I was the co-lead for the Hispanic Serving Initiative at UWM. So I have a lot of thoughts and vision as far as what could happen here. So I look forward to working with Dr. Eva and Dr. Nadine in the future. And so I welcome any questions if you have any.
welcome.
Okay, thank you. And the next update is our affirmative action plan, and I would like to call my colleague Dan McColgan from Human Resources to join me.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dan McColgan. I'm Director of Employee Labor Relations at the college. And I think we had a slide deck we were going to go through in terms of some of the data. And hopefully you received it in advance. There's a little more detail than what we presented in the past. I think when we were here in March, some of the board members referenced that it might be more meaningful to kind of maybe take a look at the progress we've made and a deeper look back instead of just kind of comparing where we are now with the workforce data. So we have some additional detail regarding, there should be a PowerPoint. But one of the main goals of the affirmative action plan is to balance the employment of our faculty and staff. So it's consistent with the representation in the workforce of the greater Milwaukee area and the population we serve. And we not only try and reach and attain that, we try and exceed those numbers as well. And in the slides that were sent out, there was growth in a number of areas in terms of minority representation amongst our employees. And I guess she's going to be able to.
Did other people receive the slide? I'm looking through my email.
No, that's what I was looking for too. I
I
did
can't
not.
find anything that we received in advance. of the
We did
slide deck.
not. Other than the report that was actually in the
In
packet,
the
there's no
me- in the
presentation.
meeting.
I too, I was just going back to my email and seeing if I missed something. Nope.
Thank you.
Yeah, no.
It's a little,
Yeah.
we don't have access. Okay, that makes it a little bit harder, but,
This is give access on the. Okay, so try that one. So you're inside of it now? Okay.
okay, so in terms of we presented some similar information in March, and this kind of shows the college's full-time employment level. In the MATC column, you will see the percentage of MATC employees in each of the categories, and we identify minority, female, and then our three largest minority categories, Asian, Black, and Hispanic, and you'll see that they're in that column, that's where we were as of June 30th of this year. The middle column is the district workforce representation percentage, and this is basically measures the availability of the workforce in the area that we serve students, the availability of workers in those categories. You see it's positive. We are attaining or exceeding the workforce availability in all categories with the exception of Hispanic there. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay, this shows, this is last year's presentation.
2021, yeah.
Which is not what I sent. So I guess I can try and summarize verbally overall. We did look back in comparison where we were at the start of the affirmative action plan in July of 2019, and we were showing a positive movement with regard to minority employees overall. At the start of the plan, we were at 39.34%. And then in June of this year, we're at 43.3%. So that is a pretty strong move in a positive direction in a 3-year period. In terms of African-American representation, we were at 24.37% on June 30th of 2019. And in June of this year, we were at 26.63%. We also showed growth over the 3 years in the categories of Hispanic employees and Asian employees as well. And then we also looked at where we were in terms of each of the 7 occupational categories. One is executive and management. The second group is full-time faculty. The third is non-professional or professional non-faculty, clerical, technical para, skilled craft, and service maintenance. Those are all the categories. And in terms of where we are with regard to the workforce, we are meeting or exceeding in six of the 7 occupational categories. But the strongest areas of performance being the executive management group. We're at 45.76 minority representation amongst our executors and administrators, and that compares with the workforce availability of 26.24. So that's almost a 20% exceeding what we are in the local labor market. And then in terms of professional non-faculty, we've shown we're at 53.18% in terms of minority representation, and compared with a 20.33% availability in the labor market. And that represents a difference, a positive difference of 32.85. So very, okay, there we go. Okay. And I apologize, I had sent this out last week and I'm not sure what happened with it, but so the left-hand column, you'll see the 7 occupational categories. And the numbers in parentheses are the number of MATC employees in those categories. The MATC is percentage column. That's where the college is with respect to full-time employees in each of those groups. So if you add the numbers up in parentheses, it comes up to approximately our 1,200 full-time employees. And so each of the titles in MATC falls in one of those occupational groups. So you see there, we are meeting and exceeding the workforce availability in the area in all of the categories with the exception of skilled crafts, and in many cases by a comfortable margin. Skilled crafts is a challenge. There's very few of those jobs that turn over. You'll see in parentheses, there's only 9 jobs that are there. And so as those jobs become available, that is an area of focus. We've also, we were in the stages of trying to develop an apprenticeship program to source candidates internally within MATC's apprenticeship program to fill those positions long-term. Question?
Right, so I do remember this back in March, and the question I had then, and so I'm just gonna look for some clarity
Sure.
now, is when we look at district workforce percentage, is executive administration, is that percentage reflective of how many people of color are in executive administrative roles in our district?
Correct. It's the middle column is the local labor force availability.
In that particular job classification?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and so my challenge becomes when we look at faculty.
Right.
Because I don't see our faculty as an apples to apples with what are
Right.
considered faculty in the workforce, UWM, Marquette, whatever, where our faculty are nurses, CNC operators, carpenters, etc.
Right.
So that's
And I
what's a
remember
more
the question.
challenging-
I remember the question from March. I did go back to the WTCS Director Baker to see and explain, if we're hiring welters, they're not necessarily going to have a master's degree.
Yep.
And those types of things that are required with a lot of regular teaching positions. And the answer was yes, the middle number does reflect places probably like UWM, Waukesha, Gateway, and those types. It does not account for maybe those jobs where the educational requirements are not as high. But the college has kind of gone a step further. We do have a metric to try and increase both full-time and part-time employment levels among faculty by 2% a year. And we started tracking this several years ago. And I think when we presented this in 2016, we were at about 25% overall with faculty. And I think the number, the most recent number was 33%. So that's full-time and faculty. So we realize that maybe there may be some shortcomings in this data, but we've set the bar a little higher. And that's a metric that's been on our institutional scorecard for probably at least 7 or 8 years at this point. But that's just one of the problems in dealing with the data. We deal with the American Community Survey, and we're kind of at the mercy of those data points. Okay, next slide, please. This is a comparison of where we were at the start of the 5-year plan, and you'll see, positive growth in all of the areas and all the job categories, with respect to where we were. So the middle column, 2019, that's where we were at the start of the 5-year plan. 6/30/22 is where we were at the end of the fiscal year. And you'll note the most significant movement was in the professional non-faculty area. We've also had a number of jobs that have grown in that area. I think at the start of the 5-year plan, since then, we've increased by, I think, 40 or 50 positions. So we've taken, and a lot of these are student interfacing positions that were implemented with the Pathways organization in terms of advisors, student services liaisons, and those types of positions. So there's been a really good, strong growth in that area. You also see faculty has grown at 3.20 percentage points from 30.63 to 33.83. And technical and paras has strong growth as well. Next slide, please. And this captures female full-time employment representation by EEO category. You'll see the MATC percentage, the district workforce percentage, and then the positive or negative difference. You'll see strong performance in most of the areas. Skilled crafts and service maintenance are an area of challenge. And you'll see in the next slide, please. In terms of that, at the bottom there, service maintenance, we have decreased in terms of minority representation by almost 6%. So that is an area that we are keeping our eye on in terms of focus going forward in recruiting efforts. But the rest of the categories, when you compare it with 2019, there's good growth. Again, skilled craft, there's limited opportunities to with just 9 positions there. To move that number. Next slide, please. Okay, here's the number of full-time faculty positions, and there is a huge focus being a majority minority institution, with our student enrollment being about 54% majority. And so faculty is a huge area of emphasis in terms of moving those numbers well above what the workforce numbers are. So again, you'll see the MATC percentages, the district workforce availability, and the differences there. But in general, overall, a pretty good performance when we compare with the district workforce. Next slide, please. And then here's the comparison with where we were at the start of the 5-year plan that we're currently under, which runs through 2024, mid-year 2024. And you'll see in terms of minorities, there's for full-time faculty, a growth of 3.2 percentage points, and positive growth with regard to females amongst faculty. And then in terms of the 3 largest minority categories, there is growth there, although not as strong as I guess as we'd like it to be, but still trending in a positive direction. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a separation data, and we shared some separation data with you in March. And what you'll see here is the total number of separations during the fiscal year, which was 125. And then you'll see the breakdown minority versus non-minority. In the middle column is the percentage of total separations, and then in the far column is the employee percentage. So in terms of non-minorities, they are separating at a slightly lower rate than they are represented in the workforce. Minorities are separating at a slightly higher rate than the representation in the workforce. And then below the line there, you'll see our largest three minority groups in terms of their separation rates versus their representation in the employee population as a whole at MATC. I believe when we were here in March, we were asked to do a little deeper dive, in terms of why people were separating. I think Director Baker suggested maybe let's look at the reasons why people are separating. Are these voluntary terminations? Are these retirements? What are they, and what are the trends there? So next slide, please. So we did break it down to 125. You can see in terms of voluntary resignations or involuntary terminations, there was a total of 82. And again, in terms of the percentages, in this category, the non-minorities are separating at a slightly lower rate than their representation amongst the employee population, and minorities are separating at a slightly higher rate than the employee representation. And down below are retirements, and you'll see there was a total of 43. And again, non-minorities separating through retirement at a slightly lower rate than their representation in the workforce, and minorities separating at a slightly higher rate. On a positive note, and I know there was, yes.
That top category of design term, are those voluntary or involuntary terminations?
It's both.
So, I mean, I think it'd be more helpful to separate voluntary and involuntary, because involuntary, we don't need to know the reason that they're leaving, right? The question is more around why are the people voluntarily leaving? So it'd be more helpful to know the breakdown of the voluntary resignations.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you do, I don't remember looking up, so we talked about this last time, if you guys do an exit survey, or if you've got anything that just says like other job, family reasons,
Yes.
whatever, just sort of broad categories, so we can get a picture of.
We did like a 6-month task to kind of do that, and we identified reasons. We identified the top reasons that people separated. At the top of the list, I believe, was other opportunities, but right below that, I think, were issues with work environment and job dissatisfaction. And then the fourth category, I think, was management. And then the fifth most popular reason was commute time and flexible work arrangement types of things. Since we now have that in place, and I think that data captured the period of July 1st of 2021 to December 31st of 2021. And I know there was some discussion earlier in the meeting about, in terms of where we were in hiring activity this year and the percentages. When we look back, and right now we would probably have 3 months worth of data, I think, or 2 months worth of data. But when we look back for the fiscal year of 21-22, in terms of overall full-time hires, minority of hires were 55% of the total hires, and non-minorities were 45%. And I believe that was in a report presented by Elbons to the board in the June board report. And also in terms of promotions, minorities promoted were constituted 46% of all promotions, and non-minorities were 54% of all promotions.
Yeah, and
And these are for full-time employees.
Yeah, I will say my comments do disaggregate that sum. I was looking at frontline faculty in particular, where our hiring is still
Yeah.
dominated by people who look like me.
Yeah, and we looked at that as well. And for 21-22, in terms of full-time faculty hires, 37% were minority and 73% were non-minority. And again, this is off the June board report, and that captured most of the fiscal year that ended in June of 2022. And then in terms of promotions, faculty had 40 minorities were promoted, 40% of those, and then non-minorities received 60% of those full-time positions. So the other thing I would add, I guess, in terms of hiring, we recently went through an exhaustive audit through MRA, and they've come up with a number of recommendations. I know we have, we're getting our talent acquisition team fully staffed, and there's a number of things that they want to move forward with. But the recommendations will go through a committee. The committee will come back with recommendations, and then we would move forward from that point.
A couple of quick questions. What is MRA?
Management Resources Association.
Okay. Question I've raised before goes to the percentage of faculty, specifically Black faculty, as it compares to the percentage of Black male students. Didn't see that anywhere here. If I missed it,
Yeah,
I
no, we
apologize,
did pull
but
the
how is it?
number in terms of full-time Black faculty, and I believe it's a little bit over 8%. I think it's maybe 8.03%. And that we looked at that last year as well, and I think we were around 7.6%.
Okay, percent. I don't understand the percentages. What is 8.3% of what?
8.3% of all faculty are African-American males.
Got it. Okay, and what percentage of the students are African-American males?
I've got that if you have a minute. Well, we wouldn't have it by gender, but we would have it.
That's the
by-
critical question.
Yeah,
Right, because there's.
we would have the African-American representation among students overall, but I don't think the data we get from the state, I don't think it breaks it down by gender within a race.
Okay, I'm not asking about state statistics. I'm asking about our own internal statistics. Okay, so I'm not asking you to compare what we have as opposed with the general population. I'm saying within our organization, what percentage of our faculty is Black male? And within our organization, what percentage of our students are Black male?
And I have the number for faculty. I can get the number.
That's a number I'd
Or-
like to hear whenever
yeah.
we do this,
Yeah.
because of the research that suggests that that's a big issue with
Yeah.
completion in particular. But then I would ask this question, I don't know who to ask it of. I've never looked at data about that question for Latino males. Is it the same? Is there statistical evidence that suggests that having a Latino male as an instructor is particularly important to Latino male students, completion rates, retention rates, whatever? I don't know. I don't
There's
know
a
if
lot
anybody
of
else knows.
research in education right now around the looks like me type
Mhm.
of, regardless of race, gender, combinations of those. So it extends beyond just one specific. So I think that there
Okay.
is, so it'd be good to compare that. I think we're trying to look at, and I think that was Director Baker, when you were talking about the workforce and being representative of what MATC is, that how does our student population be represented by the employee group, specifically faculty, and what that might be in that representation of that, because that looks like me identifies with, right? We're trying to become an HSI and all of that, and there's the representation of what does our student body look like, and trying to even encourage enrollment in those two things. So I think that that's data that makes sense in some of this.
Okay, but the comparisons I'm seeing, if I understand them correctly, do not differentiate between males and females. And that's,
From what we've gotten already.
yes.
I agree with you, and I agree that your ask is needed, because to not differentiate is very challenging right now.
Thanks.
I guess I would just like to holistically say that it was very difficult as a board member to not have this data in advance. It also is I think we've talked about this, that this was just the data, and what we're trying to do is make sure that we're taking care of the data as board members behind the scenes and come to the table to talk about the so what. So I'm just going to be very direct and say that it was very challenging because affirmative action is, while it's a compliance issue and every 6 months we talk about it, our work tonight should be around the so what this was about and the questions that we're sort of getting at now. We were not able to prepare well enough because we did not get that data prior to tonight to be able to get out the questions that were just starting to hit the surface. So I'm going to ask that in the future, we have this data and that the data is formed in a way that we can have conversations around the so what, not just the what. And so that's very important to us as board members. And so the data, we want to do our homework and we've done it with the stuff that's given to us in advance. This was not given to us in advance. And so we were not able to frame the questions and have some very healthy discussion around affirmative action as it is very important to us as it's part of the DEI work. So I'm going to ask that in the future, we're able to have that information and it's presented to us in a so what format and we're able to have that discussion here at the table.
And I apologize for that. I mean, I'm not sure what happened with it. I mean, I did submit it and ask that it be distributed in advance.
Beyond
'Cause-
just giving us
yeah.
the data, I guess, I want to make sure that it's presented in a way, we don't know how to look at so just the flat data. It needs to be presented in a way that can frame the discussion around the college's goals in a way that makes sense and it relates to that. So I guess that's what the ask is, in addition to just having the data in advance. So thank you.
Sure. So going back to the resignation, retirements, termination, and I'm not sure if this is comparable, but typically in industry, we talk about regrettable turnover, right? So within those voluntary resignations, who are the turnover that are painful, right? That we didn't want to have happen for whatever reason. I'm wondering if we've got some way to kind of filter that out, right? And within every organization, there's the retirements which are going to happen, the involuntary terminations, but there's that slice of involuntary or the regrettable turnover that I'd like to focus on. I think that's where we can look at what's happening and why. My other question is, we've talked about, exiting and hiring. Do we have, and I guess I'd like to see some more information around, do we have a retention issue or a recruitment issue? And are we not retaining the people that we want to retain, and therefore we're having to recruit people that maybe don't look like us or look like what we want, or are we not finding, I'd like to kind of understand the way that those two pieces are playing together and where we really should be focusing our efforts.
And off the top, I think it might be more on the recruitment side, because I know when we presented turnover information, I think we were around 7.5% in the end of 21 and around 6.5% in 2022, and higher education is around 16%.
Yeah, which is on paper great. Again, I'd want to understand what is the regrettable turnover in those spaces and what is really, acceptable and healthy turnover.
Just to add to that too, do we exit interview retirees? Or
Yeah.
we do, okay, because
Yes.
I think sometimes people also take
Correct,
retirement, that
yes.
they're eligible for it, but they're probably regrettable. We probably wish they hadn't. So it's not just in the resignation.
And I'll just piggyback off of both of them. Do you have a total response from the exit interviews?
Like a
Like,
summation, like a quarterly summary.
Yeah, like how many responses did you get back from it?
Mhm.
Okay, and then from there, are you guys working with the union to see what kind of retention things that you guys can do?
No.
I don't know that we're working with the union on the exit survey process.
Well, I don't mean the
That's-
exit survey. I mean,
Just
piggybacking off of
retaining
what Erica said is like, what are you doing to retain the faculty that you have? Are there attempts to speak with the union since they represent a large part of the faculty to see
Probably not
what
as much
things?
not as much as we should be.
Okay.
And a lot of that has to do with just the staffing challenges and the turnover we've had in HR. So now that we do have a third partner, that's the involvement that we want to start having more frequently.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that would be a good issue. I think in my line of work, I know that the frontline people really have the answers. So speaking like directly, maybe some current surveys of staff, or again, speaking to the representation that some of the faculty members have as with the union. So I think that would be a good idea.
Okay, so as long as we got this
I
big
already got
amount.
shape that, sorry.
I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Kristen, I'm not. Kristen.
Yes, and if I just may interrupt, I think Director Moore Omokunde had his hand up as well, and I just wanted to bring attention.
Okay, sorry, I did not know that he was.
And I can't see because he's behind me.
He's
so I'm the only
behind,
one
so
who
I
can't
couldn't
see.
hear him.
I apologize for that, my back is to you, so.
No, no
you have
problem. No problem. I had a question. I know we are using the phrase so and so that looks like me or so and so that looks like me, and largely that's used to talk about Black and brown folks. And I'm wondering, is there any measurement for socioeconomic or class status that isn't necessarily being captured?
Good question.
Yeah, if I may, we recently just received the results from the racial climate study as it pertains to students at MATC, and that survey actually captures a lot of the different intersections between identities such as socioeconomic, race, first generation status. We also have really nice data on students who may identify as part of the LGBTQ community. So we just received the data set about a month ago. So we are in the process of really looking in and digging in, because some of those questions that you were referring to, Director Foley, in terms of what are the differences between how students of color respond to white professors versus professors of color. They really showcase and highlight some of those areas. So I'd be happy to include that at the next DEI update next month, to be able to highlight some of those findings, because when it comes to race and ethnicity, we know that many times it's not just that, it's also the intersection of so many other things that are at hand that play a role in a student's success. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
Like, I don't know. Just on both come up at the same time.
Well, thank you, because you were getting at one of the issues I was also thinking, because it's culture as well. Asian is like a data point up there, and yet it represents a variety of different cultures. Hispanic is a data point out there that represents many different cultures. There are different languages. And I think the more we are able to be responsive and understand that in terms of our workforce, I think the healthier it's going to be. So.
The question about socioeconomic points and not just race baffles me in this regard, and I'm not looking for an answer, but I'm hoping that in the next reports you can shed some light on this. If you're saying that we need to have a similarity of socioeconomic status between our faculty members and our students, most of our students come from pretty low economic backgrounds. And I would hope that we're paying our faculty members enough that we're keeping them out of that lower end of the economic background. So I don't know what it means to say that. And similarly with any of the other factors we may not have enumerated here tonight, if the report that you were talking about a moment ago tells us which of those are important and what that means, I'd like to hear about that at some future meeting.
Yeah, sorry, I'm like bouncing all over.
That's
trying
right,
to
I
see
know
where
this
everything
is a
so,
great
yeah.
conversation, and I really was hoping to look at that data, because to me, and going back to what Director Foley said about people that look like me, I think we're asking more about people that can understand me. And going back to part of the socioeconomic thing is maybe not necessarily the socioeconomic thing, but how can they understand me and my thought process, right? And this is why it's important. Every time I look at those numbers and I see that 8% faculty on Latino, to me, it is, I mean, I'm kind of a numbers guy, because this is what I do every day. And then I gotta measure those numbers to see what ideas I can come out with and how I can make it better. if we plan to become an HSI to 25% students in an institution, 8% faculty, I don't think it's going to help a whole lot. And I'm going to give you a quick explanation about why. It's not about that if we speak English or not, or they are bilingual or not, right? It's only if they can understand our culture and the way we think and our background or where we're coming from, right? For example, you have a family that we are raised in a family that they never went to college. They don't know the processes, right? And this is where they work at. They work at construction, hospitality, farming. I mean, you name it, we do it all, right? But we never look at a spreadsheet. We don't know about processes. We rely on our efforts, right? And then we pass that along to our kids. A good work ethics and that you have a good great life ahead of you. But when it comes to processes, then we are like, I don't know how to help you there, right? And this is the part that sometimes is not easy to understand from a culture that is being raised on processes, right? They're raised with, yeah, this is not a question about if you go to college. The question is, what are you going to go to college? And for us, it's not necessarily that question, because once it comes to that, we were like, oh no, maybe I'm not going to ask that question because it's going to cost me money. I don't know how it works. I don't have the resources. I don't know where to go, right? That's why we have to rely also on our teachers to support that. Why? Because when they see an issue with one of the students, maybe they can reach out to the parent, right? And go like, hey, what is going on? This is a matter of communication. You know how it works, opportunity. And more often than not, we find out that, oh, I didn't know nothing about that. I really want to move forward. I really want to move forward with my life. I really want my kid to grow. And this is the part that is important for us to have. We have to have those faculty members that can help us support that, right? We have to have a good strategy about how we're going to reach out not only to the students that we try to recruit, but also we have to educate their parents. And we need to understand why we need to educate them, right? Because, and this is why it becomes so important that not necessarily people that look like us, but people that understand us and understand these things that we go through as a community, so that we can make the right decisions, right? As far as trying to increase the number of Latino students, increase and raise up these families. That's why I believe in my experience being a Latino and have gone through all those processes myself, that I think that's the kind of the key way is so important. And it's so important to look at the data constantly and go like, okay, these are our numbers, and we really have to kind of ranch up those numbers up as far as we can get them to, because that's going to be our support when we recruit these kids that are coming into the school. How are we going to retain them now, right? Because yeah, you're trying to fill out the bucket, but if you have a big hole on the bottom, that's not going to really help, right? So that's kind of why I think, going back to probably what Dr. Foley was saying about the numbers, we need those data. Chair Olsen, is we need to look at that data and we really take it in hard and go like, this is why we need this. This is why we need to look at it and really focus on to come up with better ideas of how we can make it better if you're really in hard trying to get up to that point. So that's what I have to say. And
Thank you.
Virtual question too. That was first.
Who was? So sorry, I just feel someone's gonna have to tell me because I can't do so. Director Moore, Omukunde, I think you're next.
Thank you. I just want to respond about the socioeconomic and class part. I think Antonio hit a lot of things and what kind of elucidated some of the things that I was talking about. I think that considering race and class gives a more holistic approach to our student body and who we're talking about. Because sometimes when I hear the phrase, especially in my line of work, I need somebody that looks like me. Really what they're talking about is if there are 5 or 6 positions or streams of economic prowess or economic opportunity, if I can get 5 or 6 of my friends who are from my community to get that, then I'm good. And it's not necessarily reflective of what's happening with the masses of people. And when we take race and class or socioeconomic status into consideration, then we're getting a better snapshot of that. Because oftentimes we also have to consider not only internal racism, because a lot of times people will say, this can't be racist, so and so is black or brown. And we don't consider what internal racism does to people. We also don't consider what internal classism does to people as well. where people are, you know, coming to school and I'm going to be, once I graduate, I'm going to be better than X, Y, or Z. And these are just factors that we need to be taking into consideration as we are getting data and numbers talking about the race and gender of our faculty and our students. We also need to take class into consideration as well. I'm off my soapbox now. Thank you.
Thank you. I do see Director Menezes Ramos, I do believe your virtual hand is raised.
It is, and I really don't want to put my picture because I don't feel good and I do not look good at all. So I don't want to have my camera on. Well, I just want to play the devil's advocate here a little bit, and I want to make a couple of comments, but based also on personal experience and the people that I come across on a day-to-day basis in my industry and some of the staff that works for me that are MATC employees. Sometimes it's not necessarily about having somebody that looks like me or that understands me, because our culture is changing. At least I can speak for the Hispanic community in Milwaukee. It's not necessarily that first generation immigrants that are going to school. We have a lot of second and third generations already that we are kind of like forgetting, that are not necessarily wanting to go to a four-year college, but would like to attend a technical college. They're just not necessarily aware of everything that we provide for them. On the flip side, we also have a lot of Hispanic professionals that could become teachers at MATC that will be more than happy to share their skills and talents with our students. However, we're also not doing a very well job at communicating what's available for them. And, or at the same time, the requirements for somebody that is just starting their teaching careers are too high to begin at MATC, so they choose a different institution. And I speak that from experience because I was approached at one point years ago to come and teach at MATC. However, they were asking me for a lot of requirements that I didn't have. And because I am a busy business owner, I wasn't going to spend the time doing that. So at the same time, I was approached to teach at WCTC, and I did that for a number of years because they work with me for me to achieve those milestones or stepping stones. So that's something that we ought to consider. In my industry as well, I become across a lot of like event professionals and chefs. Just last night, I was at the American Culinary Federation dinner, and some of those chefs have the experience and the willingness to teach at MATC. However, they are hesitant once again because of all the red tape to either get in or move up. So we're probably focusing on only one side while we should be focusing on also how can we attract that talent. Well, we have a lot of students, like I mentioned, that are first generations. We also have the second and third, and they want to see also those capable teachers. But when we are trying to reach those generations, they're more interested in learning like, okay, what is MATC going to do for me and help me become a better person, as opposed to like, okay, there is somebody that looks like me, and that's the reason I'm choosing MATC. So with first generations, yeah, that's more what we need, but with second and third, not as much. So we have to find a good balance in between. So those are my 2 cents here and my comments.
Thank you.
One quick
Yep.
comment. So we've been talking about faculty numbers in general, and I don't think that that's necessarily created equal when I think about like skilled trades and apprenticeships, right? If we're trying to bring diversity into those programs, there needs to be some women instructors. There needs to be some non-white old men instructors, because that's how you attract and help those students go through those programs. And so I don't know if faculty in general is the best way for us to really look at these numbers. I think, 8% Hispanic, if it's all in one department and not where the students are, it's not necessarily adding value as well. And so I'm not necessarily proposing that we have every single breakdown of department, but some of the key ones that we have initiatives around increasing representation, maybe we dig into those and look at what does the faculty and what does the staff there look like compared to the student body in a more detailed way.
I'll second that.
I think what I'm hearing, and I'm hoping you're hearing too, for anybody out there, including Dr. Martin, is that there's a deep interest and passion, as we've talked about even as the board early on, I think when it was our June meeting, that we got into some of these topics very much and really wanted to talk about how that data should be leading us into our work. And so we touched on a lot of topics tonight between students, employees, and workforce, right? That's why we're here, if you want to talk big topics. And the data that allows us to make decisions around those three groups, that we can't look at data in isolation because we need that data to be framed in a way that allows us to make decisions at the board level. And so I think the ask right now is probably to be able to frame it around those so we can look at it in a way or in a lens that allows us to connect information and decisions that we need to make as a board around workforce and those partnerships. And what we're seeing there around the students, both retention, recruitment, and then the employees, retention and recruitment. And so it seems like there is enough interest that, we spent quite a bit of time just at this board meeting, which is, around board business, that I think we need to plan for a workshop specifically just around this, in which the data will drive the conversations, because we get into this and there's an extreme interest, as there should be, around this. And so I think planning for a workshop event, as we've had that, to really dig into this in a way that allows us and everybody to have that so what. And so allowing some time to frame the data around what it is that we're wanting to discuss, because our decisions around recruitment, retention, whether it's employees, whether it's people have ideas, they have thoughts, they have experiences they want to share, but ultimately we need to make sure that that data is there and then using that. So I will work with administration to sort of frame about what that might look like as we move forward, so we're not having these one-off conversations and then now we wait till the next, because really this started from the affirmative action report and we've grown into like where we are now, and it just starts to go touch in a lot of different topics. So I guess that would be my direction, to sort of, not that I'm cutting this off, because it was to hear, as is compliance, the affirmative action report as we're required to do. So, thank you for bringing that forward very much, but I do think that it's just the tip of probably the work and the interest of where the board wants to go, because it is sort of the core of what we need to be able to do. And to Director Baker's point, that cultural piece too, we don't want to look at it that the data is so sterile that we're only looking at it, because there are those other elements that data sometimes can't capture.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. And if I may, I do agree that we also need to disaggregate the data into like the different pathways, because when we look at faculty, for example, we know that if you're looking at STEM careers, there tends to be less diversity in those areas. So we need to really disaggregate it and dig in. I also do want to point out that although we do know that we have room for improvement in the diversity sphere, we have made some progress. I know the last time I talked to you, to the board, we were at 7.7 Hispanic faculty. We're at 8.03. So slowly but surely we're making progress. And I wanted to just mention that we will continue to work on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those efforts. They're not unrecognized. We just are very passionate about that. So
thank you. That concludes my report.
Next, I'd like to call on Dr. Adams for the enrollment report.
Yeah, right. Or maybe they're like tired.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I did send you received the information and have the detailed data that you had asked for, and if you have additional questions, let us know. But what I wanted to do was to share in between, I believe it was September 6th and today, where we're at. And from September 6th until September 26th, which was yesterday, we have an additional 186 FTEs. So we are currently at 3,716 FTEs. And head count, we have an additional 1,118 students. And it takes 30 credits to make an FTE, so they're not equal to the students. So I wanted to make sure to share that information. We're currently at 95.2% of our goal for fall. We had one session to start on the September 19th, and we have another session that starts in October, around mid-October. That would be our 8-week session. Between the start of the semester and the 19th, we did additional pushes for students to enroll. There were contacted students via phone, text, just various ways. We've been contacting students, letting them know about the 18th coming up for that enrollment. Now we're also working to let students know about the 8th that's coming up. I'm sorry, October, mid-October registration period. So we do expect to receive some more FTEs before that occurs. We're 53.6% of our total goal. Right now, we're standing a total with our fall FTEs and our summer FTEs. We're at 4,438. So we're at 53.6%. So right now we need 188 FTEs to reach our fall goal. So we are continuing to work on that. We will be looking at going into our spring enrollment in November. So it's just continuous process where we continue to work on that. Are there any specific questions that you may have regarding these numbers? Processes. One piece I did want to point out, because I know this had been a question in the past about our continuing students, and I'm really happy to say our continuing student enrollment is up for this semester. We're up approximately 3.3%. Our new students and returning students, we're down a little bit in that, but we have been working. And last month, we had the report from Dr. Jeff Jans on some of the retention efforts that we were doing. So we are a little bit up in our retaining our continuing students. And we'll continue to report out with that information. So at this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Rich Busalaki, and he's going to share information regarding our high school relations, provide an activity update regarding that. That's another area that the board had asked about previously.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Good evening, everyone. How are you? I'm Rich Busalaki, the Interim Executive Director of the regional campuses, Oak Creek, Mequon, and West Allis. As part of that responsibility, I've been asked to work with the school districts in each of those areas to better align what MATC can offer and to understand better what the needs are. As a result of that, I've been meeting individually one-on-one with all of the superintendents of the school districts. My personal goal is to have met with all of the superintendents by the end of this semester. I'd like to give you an update on some of the activities that we've been working on and then take any questions that you may have. Our M Cubed initiative, which is UWM, MATC, and MPS, for the 22-23 academic year, we have about 100 students in the general pathway taking math and English with us, 27 students in the level 1 nursing, currently CNA, 13 in the level 2 nursing pathway that hope to graduate as LPNs in May, even before they graduate from high school. New this year is the M Cubed retention coach assigned to help students make the transition to college. MPS has agreed to add $8 a day to the students' Stormer Pass so the students may purchase meals. The MATC Next Door Early Childhood Education Program. 12 area high school students from MPS, charters, and South Milwaukee High School are enrolled in early childhood education courses, taking 9 to 12 credits for the fall semester. Students will return to MATC for spring 2023 semester to complete 24 to 27 credits. All tuition and fees are paid by the Next Door Foundation under the ARPA grant. Students will become eligible for an associate teacher position at Next Door upon completion of the program. The Start College Now program, formerly known as Youth Options, is where high school students are enrolled in existing MATC courses with MATC students. The Start College Now program has 219 high school students that are registered for fall classes. In the last fall, there were 220 students enrolled. Our Dual Credit Academy increased from 42 students in 21-22 to 63 in the current academic year. The academies that we are currently offering are CNC machining technician, dental assistant, health unit coordinator, hospitality management, nutrition, and dietetic technician, and welding at the Mequon campus. New this year, we've incorporated Northern Ozaukee County and Cudahy. Contracted instruction is instruction that's contracted directly with the school district. It's a closed course that's either for the school district or a consortium of school districts that participate. In FY21, there were 60 courses offered. FY22, there were 75 contracted courses. And for FY23, just for fall only, we have 55 contracted courses with high schools. Transcripted credit is where MATC is curriculum that is offered by a teacher in the school district who meets the MATC credentialing requirements. So it's a high school teacher teaching MATC curriculum that meets the MATC credentialing requirements. Transcripted credit has more than doubled in the past 2 years. In 2021, there were 1,451 students, a total of 4,290 credits. In 21-22, there were 3,797 students for a total of 11,597 credits. For 22 and 23, we have 17 new teachers onboarded this year for 22-23, and there are 26 new agreements that have been provided for transcripted credit. We're providing a pilot project and talking with the superintendents of Greendale, Greenfield, and Whitnall in an effort to better meet and address the needs of students, parents, staff, teachers, and counselors. In the school districts, we have identified a pilot where we have an MATC high school relations and recruitment specialist on site at each of the high schools for 2 hours each day. We're looking at opportunities to expand our transcripted credit offerings at these schools, at these school districts, particularly in the 200 level college parallel English and speech courses. Working with our grants office, we've received an articulation grant for $100,000 from the WTCS. The objective of the grant is to support the development of program-to-program articulation agreements for statewide aligned curriculum in occupational programs in healthcare and the Associate of Arts and Associate of Science pre-major programs. The focus is specifically on healthcare pathway programs, dental hygiene, health information technology, respiratory therapy, health services management, and 6 Associate of Applied Arts, Applied Science pre-majors, which are community engagement, art, psychology, chemical technology, and economics. The goal of the grant is to expand existing agreements that include full program-to-program transfers from technical college to technical college with aligned curriculum, and expand the existing agreements to include 2 transfer partners for baccalaureate degrees. Expand existing agreements to include the WTCS colleges statewide. So part of the grant is the programs have to be able to be available if any technical college wants to offer the program. And part of the design is to deploy marketing to create awareness of our 2+2 programs and promote enrollment. 2 last things, Bradley Tech. We're working to provide dual credit courses in construction and welding pathways for students in their junior and senior years. This year, the high school relations team has been collaborating with the MATC recruitment to host 3 educator in-service and appreciation breakfasts, one downtown, one at Mequon, and one at Oak Creek. They hope by offering the additional location and dates, more high school partners can attend these events. We've had 2 so far, one at Mequon and one at downtown. We've had about 80 participants attend the events. The one at Mequon was very well attended from individuals all over the region, not just the Ozaukee County region. I promise next time I'll have a PowerPoint slide for your review. Do you have any questions that I may be able to answer?
Sort of in line with a comment the board chair made earlier, not just a PowerPoint, it would be nice to have that as an attachment. So that was an awful lot of data to follow and I actually know this world, having worked in K-12, but that was pretty difficult to.
I'll take these notes and make sure that you get them so you have something to review.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I would agree. And since I think I was one of the people that requested more information around this, it would also be helpful because it seems like, so I just want to clarify that the numbers that you provided here include MPS. Correct?
Yes, the numbers I've
Okay.
provided include MPS.
Okay, right. So they seem very low to me, and I've been saying that for a very, very long time, having served on the Marine Park Board. And I would like to be able to see this in comparison. So verbally hearing numbers, and I'm an auditory learner, was very difficult, but it would be helpful to sort of see us in comparison to the other 16 districts, because we don't have context, and this is my world. And so it would be, it sounds, we can say, oh, those sound good, but where are they in comparison to WCTC or Gateway or whatever that is? There is no comparison there, because if it includes MPS, we have a lot of work to do, and I think getting those numbers in context would be very helpful. And understand that, which goes probably back to our previous discussion about this, because so appreciative of starting this conversation and some of the pilot projects and getting there, and that's a lot for you to manage all 4 campuses, and I recognize that, but I think since I've been on the board, it's been an ongoing conversation around this K-12 role, because if they're not, it's a captive audience right now, and it's I think as Director Case and Director Fuller and I, when we've been at the ACCT conference and we've gone to many K-12 presentations from across the country from community colleges, we are behind in that area. And that is an untapped resource that we really need to be pushing on. So I guess I just need to put in my yes and more, and if we could get that, that would be helpful to continue that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Director Foley.
Just one other question or comment. Again, one of the things we've been talking about for a few years is the need for us to start interacting with students before high school, whether they're summer programs or something else. And don't know what we're doing there at this point, but would like to know more about that, and to encourage that. We need to get into those first year of high school personal education plans. And that won't happen if we're just talking to the students for the first time then. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Dr. Martin has a question.
All right, thank you. Dr. Martin?
Yes, so just a comment, I appreciate, Rich, you stepping up. I know this is a new role for you, given all the other responsibilities that you have. But I do think that we can do a better job of really providing you information from outcomes-based funding. It's one of the categories that we do have, how the rest of the folks in the state do. We do know Fox Valley in particular is excellent at this. I do think we have, it's an opportunity-rich area environment for us to really expand. And so I think that we need to come back, and also I think you've requested in the past as well, converting these into credits then. So how many credits does this account for in our FTEs? So we'll do that. We'll bring that back and have a more comprehensive and complete presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Next, I believe Bodan Zachary is the virtual and will be doing his Milwaukee PBS General Manager's report for us.
Good afternoon, Chair Olson, MATC board members, and Dr. Martin. I'll begin my report today with recognition of the cutting-edge work Milwaukee PBS producers Mariano Avila, Alexandria Mack, and Scotty Lee Myers have created. The first season of their podcast series, which is titled Speaking Of, was awarded the top prize at the recent national conference of the National Educational Telecommunications Association. I'd also like to recognize the contribution of sound engineer Grant Martin on the Speaking Of podcast, and also give thanks to the editorial leadership of Chris Hayes, who is Milwaukee PBS's Chief Content Officer. Congratulations to them all. This fall, Milwaukee PBS will celebrate its 65th anniversary since it went on the air. You'll be seeing on-air spots marking the celebration. A number of PBS stars, including chefs Lydia Bastianich and Patty Hinich, have provided video congratulations. And we're also pleased and we're surprised that Ambassador Tom Barrett sent us a video message too. The Milwaukee PBS development team is working to get out ahead of the rest of the fiscal year by developing a wonderful comprehensive plan to celebrate the 65th anniversary of MPBS, starting on the date, which was October 28th, 2022, creating engagement opportunities that will leave donors affirmed in their decisions to support our work and create opportunities to help us exceed our goal of increasing our membership by more than 10% this year. For example, the anniversary will include an event around the new documentary by John Gerda, exploring the fascinating history of Jones Island, to virtual classes with some of the stars of PBS's Milk Street, and of course, more travel programs. The opportunities will be a warm hug to the viewers that have made Milwaukee PBS one of the most watched PBS stations in America. On the revenue side, here are some facts and figures I'm happy to share with you. Milwaukee PBS fundraising continues at a strong pace, nearly exceeding $1 million already this fiscal year. The strongest revenue lines to date have been planned giving, which has raised more than $150,000, and believe it or not, special events. The special events revenue is boosted by robust responses to Milwaukee PBS travel programs and a clear appetite on the part of our membership for travel following COVID shutdowns. Many of our trips have been sold out. Next week, Milwaukee PBS will serve as the production site for the U.S. Senate debate between Senator Ron Johnson and Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. The live hour-long event takes place Friday, October 7th. Milwaukee PBS is producing the event and satelliting it out to Wisconsin television and radio stations. That night will also mark my final duties after serving the past 7 years as Vice President and General Manager of Milwaukee PBS. I will fly home to California the next morning. I would like to take this opportunity to give thanks to and acknowledge the people who have made this chapter in my professional life one of the most rewarding ever. I'll begin with the staff of Milwaukee PBS that is responsible for creating the standout accomplishments that have made a difference in Southeast Wisconsin and have also earned recognition nationally. It's rewarding to know that I leave Milwaukee PBS as one of the most watched PBS stations in the country, and that the irrepressible fundraising team keeps exceeding its annual goals. Kudos to the engineers who have provided viewers a pristine viewing experience and also created memorable content that will continue to resonate with members for years to come. Thank you to the President's cabinet members who have been my colleagues and supporters. I've enjoyed our collaborations, discussions, and our focus on student success. Thank you to the MATC Board of Directors for supporting the mission of WMVS and WMVT. You are critical to the future success of Milwaukee PBS. Please always remember that. And finally, my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Vicki Martin for her belief in my vision for Milwaukee PBS. Dr. Martin has provided me guidance and direction when I needed it, and sometimes I did. Dr. Martin saw me through some difficult decisions I had to make in my role. She believes in the mission of Milwaukee PBS, and that's why the station has been able to build on its long history of serving the community. Dr. Martin, I want you to know that you're the most inspirational leader I've ever served under. I'll never forget the opportunity you and the MATC board provided me. So that concludes my report for this month, the final report, in fact. Thank you for all you've done.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I really don't want to let Bodan go. So of course, I waited until he gave his report and hoping maybe something would have changed between my opening remarks and this, but apparently it has not. I just want to thank Bodan for his leadership, his vision for what PBS could become. And I think that it's well on its way. I think that you have done tremendous work, Bodan, to make the changes. You've certainly stepped up our fundraising game. You've made the changes that we needed to see with the FCC. It's been a game changer for this college, and under your help and direction to guide us through that whole process, we were successful in doing that. The new programming that you've brought to the station, all the partnerships in our community, and just even with the college, just constantly thinking about our students, our programs, our faculty, our staff, and how we could make it even stronger, looking at our community with different media outlets. That vision for the future would have, I know, continued. You will be sorely missed. I know that you'll be staying on until we hire a new person part-time, but we're going to miss you after the debate. So thank you for everything that you've done for this college, and just really appreciate having the 5 to 6 years with you that we had.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Otherwise, thank you very much, Bodan, and I know that many of us have had the opportunity to work with you for longer, and some of you attend some of the national conventions with you. So we wish you very well in your next step or chapter in your professional journey.
Thank you so much.
Right. I think Laura Brave will be doing our legislative matters report, which was in our packet.
And I should be very quick. So Rainey is unable to join today, and actually there's not a lot to report on because the legislative session is now adjourned, and that Layla reported on a lot of the things I was going to report on. So you have a great summary in front of you that really talks about how we've joined with the technical college system to hope to advance those goals. The other thing is that the Joint Committee on Finance approved a request from the Educational Communications Board for 2 positions that to provide master control services for Milwaukee PBS that's licensed to MATC, so that occurred. And then there's also 2 legislative study committees that we're watching. One that Dr. Sadiq Isahaku participates in called the Increasing Offender Employment Opportunities. And then the other one that I know Representative Moore Omokunde participates in with occupational licensing. And so, and then at the federal level, we obviously are excited that the Biden plan, the cancel of student debt for low and middle income borrowers, and then also the pause on the student loan repayment is extended through December 31 of this year. We did have our legislative task force meeting, and we'll continue to have those. And the other piece that we reported on there is that there's 2 requests that Senator Baldwin pushed forward for her appropriation request, one on welding and another one on truck driving that we're monitoring, but probably that will not be decided until fiscal year, until 2023. Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to our board monitoring section of the agenda. And Dr. Duckworth will be sharing with us the higher enrollment programs, which is part of presidential goal number 9.
Thanks so much, Chairperson. Good evening. Try to be brief as well here. So we did share the slide deck with you, and there is narration with it. Try to highlight some of the programs. In addition to this, we have extensive, very comprehensive data behind it. So if you're interested in any particular pathway or program, please let us know, and we'll be glad to specifically address any questions that you may have. I have 7 wonderful deans in the crowd here, and they would be happy to address any questions that you may have. Before we take any questions, things that you may notice in the PowerPoint presentation. Why these high enrollment programs, and what are some of the common threads that you would see? The first one is all of them, you will notice that they are directly linked to the strategic goals, our FTE goals, and to our academic master plan or multi-year plan. Also, in many cases, you will notice almost virtually all of them are linked to high demand, high jobs, and the top 50 in the state or WTCS as well. Many of them offer flexible programming that includes face-to-face, virtual, online, and there's just a lot of variation and so on. Also, some of them have key initiatives, highly creative in the way they offer their courses and programs. Just to give you some examples, we have OER, Open Education Resources, free textbooks, platforms that makes it more accessible for the students and a lot cheaper or less expensive, so to speak. Also, I know you had a very rich discussion about the diversity of the faculty. Honestly, our own observation in some key areas, it is contributing to that. We have some deans who are taking very special interest in hiring faculty in these areas, and we're seeing the difference, and that's why the high enrollment programs. I do need to get to a note, and this is really maybe something we can talk about in the future. It's been really hard to recruit in some areas. It's not like we're not taking the time or doing the job. We really try, but in some areas, there's just a lot of competition. To really get a faculty, a minority faculty, in STEM, for instance, it's not an easy job. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that we're working with the Human Resources Office, we work with the DEI, we're trying to really network with some key associations to see how we can maximize, our faculty and so on. I'm just saying that in some cases it can be a challenge. But we're having some really good results in some programs. And those we can be very specific if you're interested as well. Also, you'll notice that we have high faculty engagement in these programs. So in addition to teaching the classes, our faculty are highly engaged in recruitment, in outreach efforts, in connecting with advisory committees, employers, and so on. The same is true about the pathway offices. The new setup with guided pathways, with advisors, with the coaching coaches, and so on. The continuing students that Dr. Adams talked about, it's due to the efforts of these wonderful advisors reaching out to the students out of the pathway offices. Let's see. We also are using proactive caseload management advising. I need to mention that. And finally, we are trying to meet the students where they are. What does that mean? It means that we are reaching out to them in more creative ways, surveying them, focus groups, and so on, and talking about their needs and how to meet their needs. I mean, we run kind of district-wide surveys about your preference on modality of instruction. Oh, I like online, I like virtual, I like face-to-face. All right, so we have a blend of each one. I'm really proud to tell you that, and I'll be happy to go over some data with you, but, we need to kind of, talk about the program level. I mean, generally, as a MATC, we offer a lot of options for students, but are we offering the right options to the right students in the right program? And that's where some of the deans are really kind of reaching out to their students. What's your preference? Is it online? Is it face-to-face? Is it blended? I mean, how can we meet your needs best within the program and the courses and so on? So I think there's a lot of activity there. The last comment is we're happy to share the high-performing programs, high enrollment programs. At some point, we'll come back and share with you the low enrollment programs and other ones as well. I'll be glad to address any questions, my deans as well, and I hope I didn't take too much for this presentation. Yes.
I have a quick question. You said that the deans and the faculty are engaged in the recruitment process. Have we created any incentives for the deans or the faculty if we successfully recruit someone that they propose?
To be honest with you, the biggest gratification out of this is to attract more students into the programs. If you talk to the faculty, they are happy to see more students served. And,
Oh, so student recruitment you're talking about.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But in terms of other incentives and so on, recognitions here and there and so on, but nothing in terms of financial incentives or other work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Of the 7 pathways, what are the top 3 are in order of what the presentation shows?
Yeah, we try to be particular about those, and we reach out to the deans. In some cases, it's not really enrollments, right? I mean, for the most part, it is enrollments, but some programs are doing extremely well. Let me give you an example. Real estate, relatively small program, but when you see increase over 40% in some areas and so on, you wonder why that is. I mean, it is exactly what I mentioned. I mean, we have virtual options, we have blended. We are creating certificates, for instance. We're embedding these courses. They line up and, to industry licensure as well and so on. These are the kind of creative things that we need to kind of see in more programs. And, our students are getting jobs as soon as they graduate within 6 months. Our data shows 88% employment rate.
So is there a possibility to get more data around what the program is doing, the different pathways are doing in numbers?
Absolutely. We have it by pathway, we have it by program. If you're interested in something specific, we can get it to you. Otherwise, if you'd like, I have 7 spreadsheets, 1 for each pathway, and then you have within that pathway multiple programs. I mean, honestly, I would be happy to share this data if you're interested. If you have something specific, we can help you, so we save you the time to look for it.
Okay, I think I would like the data just because I want to know what pathways are doing the best.
Okay.
And if you guys are implementing those same things in the other programs, or it just needs to be a different approach. And curious a little bit more about the human service program. I only seen like.
I think it's
Okay,
mentioned
so that-
briefly,
yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
Yep, yep, yep.
there was only like three things in there, and human service, that's a very broad.
You got it. Will be, yeah.
Type of field. So to see a little bit more implemented here, especially in like the resources. A lot of the students at MATC come from backgrounds, and I think DS mentioned this earlier about learning to be able to reach resources, like so learning processes. And I think with my human services degree, I kind of connect people with resources to make sure that they can be their top level self.
Yep.
And to not have something like that implemented, I think is probably a shortcoming.
Sure. I'll be happy to. So I'll follow up with some data.
Yes.
And just a reminder to the board that this was a switch from how we were sort of bringing some of those
Yes.
pathway programs forward, because it was sort of like one-offs and it caused us to go in some direction. So as we figure out our way about what's that right level and how we present it. So this is just a reminder in the new way that we're looking at it this year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Laura Bray again with our annual foundation report.
Hello again.
Trying to be quick.
I will try to be quick here too, because you had a presentation, but if you want to bring up the slides. I pared down that slide deck just to give you a couple of highlights. One is one of the highlights I gave in the presentation. Actually, this is the wrong, it's the one that I sent Gwen. And if you don't have it handy, keep on, it's okay. Go back to it, it's fine. I can do it fast. One highlight I gave is that the MATC Foundation Board is, you can go to the next slide. On the next one. And one more. We have two MATC, one back, well, two MATC alumni that are on the board of directors. And so this is a separate 501c3. And recently we've made two big pushes on board recruitment. One is senior level leadership at area companies. So 67% are now vice president or higher. And two, racial and ethnic diversity, which is something we've talked about today. And we're super proud of both of those. The next thing I just wanted to highlight, if you go forward, is that's that last one. You can go back. So I broke down things into three planes that we're really kind of organizing our work on. And a lot of times we get the highlights in terms of fundraising and what we do, because that is a big piece of it, but also we work on financial management. So we have about $30 million in assets that we manage and make sure it's invested with fidelity. And also that the individual donors that have given to us, that what they intended to is being carried out. And then also program impact. We work extremely closely with the college to look at things like, how do we structure the emergency grant program to be more responsive? How do we structure our scholarships to tie in with the student success goals? So I have a couple of highlights there really fast if you want to go ahead. On fundraising over time, we have done, it's a little bit of an outlier to show that we raised 9.7 million, and you can see that it's kind of a meteoric rise that I think is the largest that we've ever raised in the history of the foundation. And the reason is because of the freighter gift of $6 million. But even without that, we have a really good solid trajectory, and we've set a goal of 4.5 million for this next fiscal year. You can now go ahead, 1, 2, 3, 4. They'll just go to the program impact, which has a similar, next. Yep, similar rise. When you raise more money, you give more money. And so a couple of highlights that I just wanted to give there is that we've increased our student support by 216%. So if we looked at 5 years prior to this last 5-year period, it's pretty substantial. The other thing is we're doing things even on an annual basis. So we increased the allocation to emergency grants by 65% for this fiscal year because that was a need. The college was seeing more. I want to call out two people in particular, Sarah Dashlett and Sarah Kappert, who are the scholarship coordinators for the college. Sarah Dashlett works when it's like, if you decided to give us money for a scholarship in accounting, we would match, Sarah would work to match a scholarship to that individual need. Sarah Kappert works on the large scale Promise, the new scholarship that we just had. They're extremely awesome coordinators and should be recognized for their work. And then if the one scholarship that we have that really ties together these three ideas of good financial stewardship, making sure that we have good fundraising, and then also great programmatic impact is the new Ellen and Joe Shakota Scholarship. And when you ask toward, so what? What's the what? That scholarship is specifically for technical diploma programs and for certificate programs. 7% of our enrollment is for short-term credentials, those that can be completed under a year. 54% is tied into associate degrees, is derived from associate degrees, and 26% is liberal arts transfer. As we work with employers, what they say over and over again is we need people faster. And what a lot of people want is these shorter term programs. This scholarship, which is a full ride scholarship that covers everything from books to equipment to childcare, all of the things you heard about, is really trying to help us help our community and also help employers to get people through quicker with the support they need to complete. So as we look toward even internally and what systems and things do we need to change to make sure we take the best advantage of that amazing gift, we've had great conversations internally that this could be really life-changing for our college too. So those are my additional thoughts. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What kind of programs are like in line with that particular?
So there's 90 programs that are listed on our website. If you go,
be that quick.
Yep.
Maybe.
There's 90 programs that are within the categorization that could be completed if going full time in a year or less.
And we only have like 7%, you say? Out of
It
all
just happens to be that most people enroll in associate degree programs or the liberal arts transfer programs. It's just,
we do have the programs.
but we have the programs. It's just correct. It's
Okay.
just a matter of that has been where the lion's share of the people that are coming to school here. And it doesn't mean we like those are obviously there's great demand for those programs, but I do think there's an opportunity for us to and a lot of those technical diploma programs ladder up to associate degree and even to a 4-year degree, and that might be a great first start for someone to get a full ride scholarship and then on their path.
So wait, let me just, so we don't quite have enough students, you're saying, in the pipeline who are eligible for this?
Oh, no. I'm saying that it's just, we absolutely do.
Okay.
Yes, right now we have 150 students that were scholarshiped immediately. The announcement of the scholarship was August 19th.
Yep. Okay.
August 22nd, we were started school. So very immediately, we were trying to ensure that we had students. What I'm saying is that with that kind of draw, we can drive in both enrollment and a community need.
Okay.
Because, and my hypothesis is that we may see that shift a little bit because of the scale of this scholarship.
Sure.
Go ahead. But isn't one of the things that sets this scholarship program apart from other sources of funding that it is specifically available to students that are not enrolled in full-time programs? So the short-term things are one of the things it's focused on, and I don't think you can get a Pell Grant for one of those if it's not part of a greater.
You can get Pell Grants for many technical diploma programs, and so it's more that it's specific, that is for certain, it's either technical diploma programs or certificates. But for instance, the truck driver program is short enough that it isn't Pell eligible.
Right.
And so that would be completely covered if someone met the other eligibility criteria. And in this case, the scholarship is structured as a last dollar scholarship. And so in this case, it would be 100% that the scholarship would fund because there's no financial aid available.
Isn't there a credit requirement for it? So-
Correct. And so the intention of the donor is to try to support people to go faster. And he and his wife are providing up to 18 months of funding. And so what we're asking is that people do at least 9 credits. That they're enrolling in at least 9 credits, because many of those programs are even 30 credits or longer in duration. And so in order to get that done in that 18-month period.
And of roughly how many applications did you guys receive?
Sure. We received, I think the number is around 600, maybe up to 700. Of that, and we could give the breakdown if you'd like me to send it to you. Of that, there was a certain group of people that it was only eligible for continuing students right now. So there were some students who just enrolled, who said, wow, this is awesome. I'd love to get this scholarship. What we said is you can do that for next semester. But because the turnaround was so fast, we wanted to reach out first to continuing students, work out the bugs, and then now they can apply. But I believe the scholarship was live for people who are interested in apply. I think it just went live last week. For those that are interested in applying, who'd either want to enter even in this coming spring or even next fall, if they want to be considered. And that includes new students, returning students, and continuing students.
Okay, so the difference between the actual applicants and those that actually went underway with the scholarship, is that because they didn't qualify, or is it that you guys wanted to use a smaller cohort to start it off?
Anybody who qualified got it. And,
Okay.
and because of the scale, because the Chakotas are willing to match up to $5 million, and we were able to have, an initial donor that step forward to do that match, we're able to serve anybody that applies right now.
Okay.
And so we're actively trying to fundraise to ensure that full match is fulfilled.
Well, I guess I would want to know why the other 400 or 500, didn't
qualify.
And then maybe is there some type of resource that we can get underway for those students? Maybe it was simply that they just enrolled and they just didn't qualify this time around. But to have that data, I think will be helpful, because that's a large number of students that was looking for support that we may not have, or redirect them somewhere else.
Yeah. I know that it was of the 600 or 700, it was about 300 that just could apply for this next coming semester. So it was a fairly substantial group that were brand new students that just didn't qualify this one time. But I'll absolutely get that information for everyone.
And then I guess I have one more unrelated question to scholarship Dream Keepers. If I recall correctly, Dream Keepers is almost like a loan on your Pell Grant. So if you get the assistance, it's deducted from your Pell Grant.
It's not a loan. It's not a loan. It's an outright.
I try to use simple things for myself.
No, but the way that it is with any scholarship and with any of the assistance the college pays, we have to report it on the student's financial aid. So it may affect their financial aid award depending on where they're at in their financial aid package. So it's not a 1-for-1. It might jump them into a different category, or it may, but we have to report it as assistance, just like we do scholarships or other.
So if, for example, if a person's Pell Grant is deducted $500, where does the $500 go?
I'd have to get back to you at a couple of examples on how it works.
That would be
because
perfect.
I don't know enough.
That would be perfect, because I
answer
guess
that
I'm trying to wrap
exactly.
my head around it.
Yeah.
I was working with a student, and I think the question came up and I wasn't really able to answer it.
Sure.
So
Yeah, no, I'd be happy. I know it's complicated because of financial aid, formulas. So it may not be as clear, but we'll certainly get information so that if other students ask, that there's more than just it's complicated to give them
It's
an
my
answer back.
niece.
Oh, there you go. Great. Any other questions?
Good.
Thank you.
Laura.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Next, we have our annual marketing plan presentation by Tony Tagliavia.
Good evening, Chair Olson, board members, Dr. Martin. Tony Tagliavia, the Chief Marketing Officer for the college. And if we could just throw up, I'm just going to point to a couple of slides for highlights. So you did have the presentation and then the recording to accompany it, and I'm happy to answer questions. I just want to highlight on the third slide, just a headline from an enrollment marketing perspective is based on a preliminary analysis of applications since we launched our most recent enrollment marketing campaign. Applications are up about 6% compared with a prior 3-year period. So that's something that I think is encouraging. And when we dig deeper into numbers, if you advance another, I believe it's 4 slides, you'll see some of the marketing metrics. And again, putting that data in, it was the one just before that. Thank you very much. Just to put these into context, right? These are the things that we dive into weekly, monthly, quarterly with our ad agency. The good news is that they're all trending up, and in general, they're outperforming industry averages, though you really dive into, you know, what's the industry average for Google or Facebook or TikTok or Snapchat, things like that. So click-through rates are trending in the right direction. More people are clicking on ads. The conversion rate is trending up. More people are actually giving us contact information. A lot of our enrollment marketing is lead-based, and we want people to give us their name and contact information. Then a recruiter reaches out to them within 1 business day. And we have then automated workflows that are beginning now that go to them as well. And then cost per acquisition is trending down. Basically, they're more efficient. We're spending less money to get every lead out of the enrollment marketing pieces. So, and then the last thing, if we just go towards the end, it'll be the slides about, you know, kind of what is coming in this upcoming year. And I think it's this one right here. So just a quick outline of things that'll be new and better in this coming year. We updated ad imagery in the past year. We'll be updating ad copy to just refresh, and I'm really pleased with what we've come out of. We had talked a few months ago with Dr. Adams and her team about information from students saying how critical support is for them. And so we're making sure that we're touting those support opportunities when we're connecting with potential students. We're having specialized campaigns, not just always talking about 4-year transfer as an option or just part of the general education pathway, but really talking about 4-year transfer as its own kind of lane here at MATC, even talking about guaranteed admissions agreements that we have with places like Marquette, UWM, UW-Madison. We're updating landing pages. It just means that we're updating our website to be more efficient at driving leads and traffic. And then we're working with Dr. Gonzalez de Jesus and the enrollment management team on some additional outreach to stopped-out students through a partner, Motomatic. I mentioned the automated workflows that start when students express interest or give us their contact information. We'll be building out that roadmap all the way through registration so that in addition to the personalized outreach students are getting from the college, that they're seeing just automatic messages that kind of help them move to the next step in the process. And tied in with that, because some of them will live in the customer relationship management tool, we're really working to maximize that. And again, working with IT and Dr. Gonzalez de Jesus and her team to just make sure we're making best use of those things like automated workflows, having events live in the customer relationship management system and things like that, so that students who are in the process of starting to come to us are getting the best possible experience. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to call out specifically. I'm open to any questions that folks have.
Do we have any Spanish application that you can?
So that's something that we've been engaged in, and our current customer relationship management provider, Ellucian, does not offer that. And we're continuing to have conversations about alternate ways we can do it. I've had conversations with colleagues at other institutions. El Verno is a Hispanic serving institution. They also have Ellucian. They don't have a Spanish language application, but I think it's slightly in some different circumstances because we have students coming here to learn English. And I know Dr. Adams has a team that's working with faculty and ESL about how we can resolve some of those issues. So it's something that in a cross-functional way, we're working with teams around the college to address.
So we have to, is that the only CRM that we can use, or is there a way that we can probably, I'm sure there's gotta be some other institution that would use it, one that I already had that in place, because I know how hard it is to get these CRMs to initiate and I can take it to make it work like that. And it seems like
There are CRMs that offer that offer multilingual support. It's just the one that we currently have does not.
but there is a way that probably in the future, maybe we can think
Yes.
about, instead of trying to push them to do it, maybe we can open it up and go like, okay, is there anyone that can offer the same and maybe now has that ability to do it? It's just that we need all the help we can get to make those process more streamlined, I guess, if I can say that. Because, sometimes you get caught up in the process and the process keeps, getting more complicated and more complicated. And if anything, we want to make it easier and easier for people to really go through the system and recruit them and keep them. And I guess the end goal is just to get more people in. That's what we're all here for.
Yes,
I
understood.
mean, that's just.
And we, I have had, because we're dealing with this Spanish issue, I've asked other providers, and so it's preliminary at this point.
Could we go back to the slide that had the conversion rate? on
Yes.
it, please?
So that was that middle slide that we shared.
There.
That one right there.
Okay, I just want to understand. In an English sentence, we converted 18.05% of what to what?
Of the clicks to leads. So
Okay.
18% of the people engaging with the ad became leads in one way or another.
Okay, so 1% who engage with the ad click,
Correct.
and 18% of those are converted to a lead.
That's farther down the funnel though. So it's if you serve 25.4 million ads and 1% of people are clicking and engaging, we're getting 20% of those people.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
And it's typically they're giving us their contact information. Sometimes leads are defined a little differently. If there's, for example, when we've got ads that we're serving up to our current students who need to register, are they clicking on the register button? So it might be a little different. Or they could be clicking straight to the application.
Okay, thanks.
That's a good question.
I do have another question.
Yeah.
Talking about this, have we considered to, of course, we go after the students and the people in that demographic endpoint. I'm sure we do targeting on this that goes specifically to this, to the students, right?
Yes.
Have we thought about probably going also after like their parents or the older generation, not directed to them to register, but go like, okay, do you need more information to see how the process works? And yeah, I know it's probably a longer loop to get the lead in, but I don't even, what I'm trying to say is like, sometimes the family, especially in the Latino community, is the one that actually kind of makes the decision, not 100%, but you need that support to keep pushing that student over. And that's something that I personally have noticed every time I go to any event and I talk to families and people. It seems like the mom has a lot of questions. How does that work? What are we taking? And then the kid or the girl or the boy is there. Well, my mom is talking and whatever she says, maybe I have a follow-up question, but it seems like they initiate the conversation and they seem like they have a million questions when I start talking to them. And I was just thinking that maybe, having a target specifically and a message also created for them to go like, hey, you guys need more information as family members. And then can we support your kid or your girl or whoever you want to really help them in this scenario. And maybe from there, capture another, make it more easier for them to understand the process, because we do have a process that's very robust. It's top of the line. I mean, if you know it, you can navigate through it very nicely and go through it. But when you're not exposed to that, you become lost in the process. And this is where I think we are losing a lot of opportunities to bring these people in. And remember, this is the people that need it the most, right? The people that don't have ever been exposed to this before, and that it would be a good idea to really understand that from that point of view, right? It's like, what is their thought process? How do they think about this? And how all of these sees on the other side, right? How do they perceive this, all this information, which is great, and everybody's doing a fantastic job. But sometimes it's good to look back at the thought process from the families. And I can talk for the Latino families, and this is kind of the thought process we take very seriously, whatever mom says. Well, and that too, but mostly mom. And it seems like to me, from my experience, that everywhere I go like MATC, who is going, right? And moms just go off. Just go, oh, I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. And how does this work? And how does that work? And I'm like, yeah, there is a lot of lack of information. Moms want them. So I'm sure this conversion would be a lot higher if you just take it to mom.
Sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I'm talking about how, yeah, I mean, that would be great for them to come over. I mean, I'm not saying don't come over, but they do have a lot of interest on trying to find out more about this. And I kind of know how this works because I do this every day. I wish I could have that 80% conversion. Right now. But the way you engage but you have to pair that up with a message that is go through their family first. The mom, you need more information about how this works. And then now let's get the kid over. Send them, and you can also come over. I'm sure you need a little bit of English. I'm sure you need a little bit of this and that, right?
Great question. So a couple of things I would point out. So we do have an existing ad stream that is aimed directly at families of high school students. And we also have other influencer audiences built in, like school counselors, like specific ads to tell school counselors about MATC. And in addition to organic things like last week, this week, next week, we've got counselors from across the whole district coming to each campus to learn about pathways, scholarships, the process, things that are new and things like that. So that audience is in there. We have a landing page specifically aimed at that audience. And I think there's always more we can do and kind of look at, well, what's the process looking like right now for a family member that engages with an ad? Are we answering the questions that they specifically have? So I think there's always more we can do. It's an audience we have, but I think we can take a deeper dive because we've heard, you know, what you're sharing now from other people as well. We just had, we brought our recruiters together. We're looking at a video piece specifically aimed at Hispanic, Latino audiences as part of the HSI work. And that was part of the conversation there as well, is that we need to make sure that that families are part of the audience that we're thinking about. So that would be the second thing. In addition to reaching them in paid ads and thinking about what their experience is, we are also looking at it in other ways, like how are we engaging them with recruitment events and how are we engaging them with some of our other outreach.
TikTok, Instagram.
Yep. So I'm glad that is happening because I can say moms have a lot of questions. Yeah, we really need to answer. Well, I mean, I'm saying that in general, they're the ones that speak out the most, and they're more confident about how does that work and why, and you know, they're more interested in the why and the how, right? It's just how can we? They have their own struggles trying to get their kids in the right direction. So that I noticed because they're like, well, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where to go, and it seems like they really want to keep in direction, and that would be part of the. One of the, I think, is strategies that could work really well when it comes to really bringing all these kids in, bringing the families along with them, and open up the process. The process is great, but it's not completely understood by them. And this is when also that Spanish application comes very handy, because mom is gonna go there and go like, okay, what is it said here? What is that they're saying there? And that could help also streamline the process for them to really encourage, and there's a side of the encouragement for the kids to go, and I can see the willingness from families to really participate in that, so that would help. Thank you, Tony. And besides that, you guys have to understand.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
We move on to our annual workforce solutions report, and Lisa Reed.
Good evening. I'm the second to the last. Every year, I'm always the second to the last. So in advance of our report out, I'm Lisa Reed, the Director of Workforce Solutions. I've been at the college now 4 years. I did send you a video that I hope everybody had a chance. Just a couple of highlights. Obviously, I have a president's goal of 1 million in signed contract revenue. And we exceeded that this year by 14.8%, achieving 1.3 million. Right now, year to date, as we're going into the new fiscal year, we've already accomplished 58% of our goal. So I feel very confident of our attainment. We did this by serving over 1,600 students in 153 courses, serving 28 clients, and we had over 38 contracts. So what I've seen in my last 4 years too, just to add, is our contract dollar is getting higher. So we're now seeing our average contract spend being higher, which means we're more efficient and we're serving more. We did this really through a 3-pronged approach. Our strategy was with short-term training, cohort-based training, and customized training. Just to, if you could go back to that slide, highlight what we really saw a need for is having ready to go short-term trainings with relevant topics. So we surveyed our client base and said, what are you needing? What would you like to see? And really our sweet spot is with 8-hour training. These are 400 level. They're not credit-bearing, college credit-bearing courses, obviously, but they're getting that quick upskilling and meeting the skills gap of our employers. Very strong partnership with our deans, super supportive. Carl Meredith is back there. We use a lot of his faculty to deliver those courses. Other areas that we are trying to expand in is with our HSI initiative, where I have 3 account managers as well as myself. We're out in the community and promoting our ELL training. And we've just started a new one at a manufacturer in the Valley that makes pizza just recently. So we're really trying to get out and meet those needs right at the employer. In addition to that, to help with funding, we work with employers and business improvement districts, and we write WAT grants, Workforce Advancement Training Grants. They're funded by Wisconsin Technical College System, up to 65%. So it's a real huge funding lift for those small to medium-sized businesses that just don't have those type of resources. And one of them too, this year was, we just signed one, or were awarded one in July with Len, the Latino entrepreneur, and we have a computer basics training course that just started too. Next slide. Thank you. Customized training, that is a real growing area for us. We're really seeing a lot of unique requests coming out of our employers. I know I highlighted the urban arborist program, but also another one that's really high is with welding. We're seeing such a surge with wanting to have customized welding fundamentals. So more short-term training, like 40 hours, 32 hours. Our manufacturers are hiring entry-level folks and they need that quickly. And then the next is with our cohort-based training. In my video, I highlighted 2 different ones. I highlighted our IT bootcamp, which we just started our 13th cohort. And this is a partnership that we've had with Employ Milwaukee. And we're looking to also expand that starting in the spring, specifically targeting those individuals that completed the first service center technician and get them back in, and they would complete 5 more courses and get another credential, and it would be a technical diploma. So really excited about being more targeted and more focused with bringing folks back that have already earned 12 credits. And then I finally always want to end on a high note, and we had a student success story with our Uniquely Abled Academy that the Workforce Solutions team implemented. Last year, we had 6 individuals that ended, and 4 of them returned in the fall and are enrolled in our program to continue their onto their technical diploma. I spoke with the faculty, Dale Hauser, and he said they're all just doing amazing. And we currently, for this fall, have 5 enrolled, and I hear that they're just really off the charts. Any questions? Yes.
Just one, and it's not in the information here, so maybe this is a going forward thing. It would help me to see where we are if I understood how we compare to other technical colleges. in terms of the numbers of trainings that we do and the amount of revenue we bring in.
So that is a great question and a question that is always asked. That information isn't, what do I want to say, readily shared amongst our peer group.
Okay.
So although we would love to compare that, it isn't something that is shared out.
I'm looking over at Layla.
At who?
Okay.
Oh,
Layla, yeah.
But with the new dashboard, you'll be seeing on a regular basis where our workforce contract revenue is.
Okay.
And I hope that's helpful. And I'm always open to sharing any other information you'd like to see.
Yeah, since Layla is not within my direct view, I'd
Okay.
like to encourage her to think about how we might get that data in a way that people wouldn't be afraid to share it.
She was doing one of these emojis when I'm.
Yeah, okay, okay, that's a good sign.
It's good to see that, the data is tracking in the right direction, especially on the revenue side. That means that we get it out there and more interesting on the programs and the training that we provide. So that's
Yes.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, question right here.
Is there just somewhere to find the different partnerships?
Can you rephrase your question? I'm not sure I
Is
understand.
there a place to locate the partnerships that you guys are contracting for?
No, that's something that we can share out if you'd like to see what
Yeah,
customers are
I guess
serving.
what I was curious about is like what partnerships that you guys had.
So would a list, year over year list of who we served be?
Yeah, I guess so. Again, I just see the number, so I guess I'm just curious as to like what partnerships directly do you have? Like what company was it that you worked with?
Sure, we can get you something.
I'd like to encourage that too, because one of the things the board can do for you is if we see somebody that we think may have an interest in this that is not on that list, we can put you two together. If we don't have any idea who's there, then we're probably not going to be able to help in that regard.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, I appreciate that. That'd be
So,
wonderful.
As a previous partner, we did have workforce solutions and interesting training at Harley. It also may be helpful more so than specific companies, but what types of programs, right? Like if I saw, right, we did a very specific team leader program for our hourly folks to help them advance their leadership. So ideas of, hey, that might work, or that I might be able to connect that is also, I think, helpful. Because I know when we started, we were not really sure what was available. That might be helpful also.
So Director Case, would that be more like just a list of different course topics?
And I don't even know if it has to be a list necessarily, but just maybe kind of some top or like new thing, partnerships that you've had, right? I mean, I know when we did ours, we kind of sat down and pulled some other things that you had done and then came up with something. So, I don't know, that needs to be like a 25-page list, but.
So, yeah, so for instance, it says develop 30 new training modules. You could give us like 10 examples of what those are, and I think that would give people a flavor.
And then going back to like the police said, for example, like that landscaping design, I'm sure I know a lot of them that would probably be interested in that training. That, like for example, like you said, if we know a program that we think we have somebody that know that is part of our industry that we know, right, that they can benefit from it, and we can always go like, hey, look, this is a good area, but that we can grow that.
Right.
And I can see that landscaping design from a lot of small companies that I have worked with in the past that would benefit a lot from that, because if they have that along with their quotes and on their bio or whatever, that would say a lot to them, and I'm sure they can get a lot more business, for example, right? Because I would assume that is
a warm referral is greatly appreciated.
budgeting for lawyers.
Is that a new topic?
None of them know how to do.
Well,
Okay.
customized training.
Push through here, we have one more topic.
Thank you all for your
Everyone.
feedback.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very much. We have one more topic before we adjourn to closed session. So Jeff will be taking us through the last topic that we see on here, sorry. Making through the fiscal year and operating results from 21-22.
So at your table, you should have two colorful reports. Will, yes, it should be at your desk. The first one we'll look at is the general fund. If you look at the top of the page, it'll say general fund. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. That's column L. So if we go down to row 22 and you see total revenue, you're following me, and then you can look at column I, which was the previous year, 2021, June 30th, 2021. There's an increase of $4.9 million of revenue. And there's two things that happened, two major things that happened between 21 and 22. We had lower FTEs in 22 than we had in 21. And that we had 204 less FTEs in the current fiscal year. And that was a financial impact or revenue impact of $1.2 million negative. But then if you look at row 21, you'll see there's in column L, there's $6.5 million of federal revenue. 6.4 of that was related to her funding. We took in from the institutional portion of her revenue or her funding, we took in lost revenue. So we were able to take in $6.4 million. So I just wanted to let you know about that. So as we go down, salaries were lower this year versus last year. Fringe benefits were up, and it's primarily driven by an increase in healthcare versus prior, $2.5 million increase in healthcare spending. Primarily, people were able to get out and do elective procedures that they couldn't do the previous year. And if we look at the last category of expense, we have, I call it discretionary spend, and that's on row 29. We had about a $1.1 million change in expense related to student uncollectible. So we had students that the previous year, if you remember, we paid down a lot of the student debt. And so there was an increase in student debt this year that is in the process of being paid down. So the bottom line, if we look at the net surplus that we had this year, row 33, it's $3.5 million. Now, we're going to put the $3.5 million into what we refer to, into our reserves, but we're going to tag that as strategic initiatives. So we will, when I meet with Moody's at the end of the year, after the audit is complete, we are going to let them know that these are going to be spent in the future on a strategic initiative. And we've got a list of strategic initiatives. You know, one of the big categories we've used, we can use that for is we have student debt. We incurred, in the last year, we've incurred $3.5 million of student debt, and we could help students pay down their debt. So that's one of the strategig initiatives that we have listed. So I'll pause for a second if there's any questions related to this statement.
How will paying down student debt make a difference to Moody's?
Well, what we do is typically if you spend out of your reserves, Moody's may penalize you because you're taking from your reserves. If I tell them in advance that these are strategic initiatives, they're not going to be used. We're not going to use these funds for operations.
So they're not going to go in and then be taken out. They'll just be set aside.
It'll be in, but it'll be tagged as a strategic initiative. And when we do take it out, they will not be surprised and they will not downgrade us because of we're taking directly out of the reserves. Good question.
That was a great question because I was afraid to ask it. Which brings on my next question. Why does it have to go into the reserves only to be pulled out to pay for the students that?
In accounting terms, there's no other place to put it. You close out your income statement at the end of the year, you have a surplus or deficit, and that rolls into the reserves.
Okay.
It's on your balance sheet. It's an asset. It's
okay. So essentially what you're saying is it has to wait until the end of the year. So that is why it has to go into it.
Well, no, we just, at year end, we put these into, we took the HERF funding and put it into the revenue.
Okay.
So we
it
made
had
it, it was
already
a
happened.
strategic decision
Okay.
to do this.
Yeah. From
Okay,
last-
'cause-
It was the end of last fiscal year, but now we can move it this way. There's no place to put
Yeah,
it here.
okay.
Yeah.
So that makes sense
Right.
now that it's already there. I'm like, well, why would we put it in there? And
To
then,
begin with, right, well, we should just budget for it, but it's
Yeah.
after the fact from last fiscal year.
Okay.
Yep.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think there's another reason too, and that is we've had some concern in the past about our general reserve fund getting to the point where the state legislature might take notice and decide that we don't need as much funding on a regular basis, and perhaps by setting that aside right away, that mitigates that.
If you look at the 16 technical colleges in the state, if you look at reserves as a percentage of revenue, MATC is the lowest. We have the lowest percentage. So we would not be there'd be other schools that would have a greater risk. But if you look at what Moody's Moody's would be looking for a 25 to 30%, and you can see we're at 22 or 23-ish. Good questions.
I have one more question for
Sure.
the salary side. I know we increased our budget for counting the lower FTEs that we were gonna have, but it still came out a little bit lower than what it was the year prior.
Yes. We had lower FTEs in the current year. And we were trying to, what we do is, we budgeted actually for this fiscal year, we budgeted for 8,800 FTEs and we ended up with 78. So almost quite a bit different. And for every 100 FTEs, 100 FTEs is equal to about $571,000 of revenue. So we lost quite a bit of revenue compared to budget. So what we did as we were throughout the year, this last year, we were looking for ways. We were asking people to reduce their spending, reduce travel, the discretionary spending. And then also as people left the college, if people retired, if people left for another opportunity, if it wasn't a student facing position, a lot of times we made decisions to hold those positions open. So if you think about it, if our structure was built to, on about 9,500 FTEs to 10,000 FTEs, but you can see we're significantly lower. So we have to anticipate that in the future, if we're not going to jump back up to 9,500 or 10,000 FTEs, we need to really look at, and we've looked at quite a few management positions, and we want to keep the student facing positions. So we're looking at those positions and try to do more with less.
Okay, and now you can. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Can we go to the next statement, or are we good with this one? The next one is public television. So if we look at public television, fiscal year 2022 is column G. And it's compared to column C, which is the yellow column on the left. And we look at total revenue on operating revenue on row 15, row 15. We have about $9.5 million of total revenue. One of the things to note, and Bodan kind of alluded to this, that his team is doing a very good job with fundraising. Development is the area that is the fundraising area. And if you look at that, he's $7 million this last fiscal year. That's greater than what we've seen in past years. And the budget was 6 million. So very good performance there. Spectrum proceeds. Typically what we do, if you remember, Spectrum proceeds are the FCC funds. One of the things we do is if they have a shortfall, we will provide FCC funds to help them balance their budget. And we haven't had to do that in the last 2 years. Now, as we work our way down to the expenses, you can see the total operating expenses, row 22. That came in, quite a bit lower than budget. There was, if you look to the right, there was a almost $4 million $10.4 million total expense budget, and they only spent about 9 million. So they had an operating surplus of $471,000. So that's the operating profit. The next section is capital and debt service. That has nothing to do with the operations. But so we move a little bit lower. We look at the interest income. The interest income is a significantly higher number than anticipated. Well, interest rates went up a little bit, but they did really well. Almost $500,000 of interest income. And one of the things that you look at on row 36, $2.2 million loss. Now that loss is an unrealized loss. So if you think about it, they didn't sell investments to have a realized loss. They were holding their investments, and the value of those investments, just like everything you've seen recently, has gone down. So they still have, the investments are still there. And so they had a net deficit of $1.7 million. But if we look at the operating income that they had, the $471,000 plus the interest, excluding the $2.2 million unrealized loss, they had about a $960,000 surplus or profit. So it's very commendable for public television.
Yeah, that's just great, all things considered,
Yes.
especially on the real life loss that we had.
Any questions?
Not seeing any, so you might want to take advantage
Quick.
of that.
Since I'm the last, yeah. Thank you.
Next topic is new business. Are there any items? Dr. Baker.
Yeah, so, board members may notice that this, placemat in front of me with no food on it. And that's my fault. But I do think that, some of the conversations that we have had with, the vice president, general counsel, retiring, taking a new job, and, some of the conversations we've had about the work, particularly in our learn pathway and changes that we were going to see organizationally to reflect better implementation of pathways. I asked for an organizational chart so we could see a little how some of the different things were being distributed. And so I would love it if we're not noticed to have a conversation about this. I do think that this is a good thing for us as a board to have a sense of, and if we're even hearing a little, I was very happy to hear the phrase you used, Jeff, that, if we had positions that were open that were not student-facing positions, we held those open. Well, I just want to see what effect that has on us operationally. And so I just would love to have, it could be in the president's report, or it could be something else next month, but I'd love us to be able to chat about this. And that's why you have the placemat.
Much appreciated. I'll be laminated.
Thank you. Any other new business? Just a few announcements that we made already for some future events. We have the upcoming Technical College District Boards Association in Eau Claire, which you can still attend virtually, which is where you're going to get all your parliament procedure from. Our next meeting is on October 25th, right back here. And then I don't believe Gwen shared with me that nobody is currently signed up to go to the ACCP convention in New York. So, that being said, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I do know that I had just asked Representative Moore Amakundi if he was joining us in closed session. And I think can he zoom in?
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about that in a second.
Oh.
So, yep, so,
Oh, okay.
and because the word said, yep, so.
I move that the district board convene into closed session pursuant to section 19.85 IG of the Wisconsin statutes to discuss item 10A litigation update. The board may reconvene into open session to take action on matters discussed in closed session under item 10A if necessary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So we will take a roll call vote, and this is to let you know that we're moving into closed session. Currently, there is a Zoom link. Everybody who is not part of the board or our outside legal counsel will be kicked off on that. There is no virtual meeting. So Director Menye-Ramos and Moore Amokunde will stay in where you're at. Please don't leave because everybody else will be asked to, and we will probably take a little recess. And Dr. Martin also will be. So for people who are on there, please stay on. Everybody else will be either asked to leave or we will force them to leave on there. So I'm going to please take a roll call vote.
I'm right.
We're gone. Yes.
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye.
Director Menye-Ramos.
Oh,
Director Menye-Ramos.
I heard something about one.
Director.
Hi, sorry.
Okay.
Mute.
Hi. Director Moore Umukunde.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Burrs.
Aye.
Director Tate. Aye. And Director Olson. Aye. So thank you for those in attendance. I need to take a few minutes here. Sorry, like I've been sitting, my watch has been saying you haven't stood for 4 hours. So we're going to take 10 minutes for those who are online. So please don't leave, just mute.